Almost every New York Times article I've read about the indictments obviously seems to be very slanted against Donald Trump. Do you disagree with this?
Yeah, hold on. Yes, I disagree. Wait, you should be able to point to at least one thing, but you can't point to a single thing, which makes it feel like this is kind of an invented problem. Or you're mixing Bosch's commentary up with a New York Times article.
While everyone was talking, I was looking through New York Times articles, and I will agree that I will take back what I said. I found lots of New York Times articles that did seem to be talking about the Trump indictment in a neutral or at least factual way for the most part. Wait, stop.
How you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. My favorite right-wing podcast hosts.
We can get right into that.
How dare you?
Yeah, Cherry, you did put that in the description, right?
No, I didn't. But before we get into it, to introduce ourselves, Adam Sitch, Right Wing Podcast. What is that? Who are you?
Look, I'm so glad we haven't started streaming yet because I don't want.
Wait, I'm streaming. Oh,
I don't want any of that on our stream.
I'm streaming as well.
Oh, okay. Jesus, I don't know if he was about to say some wild. Okay.
Well, I'll press the button.
Look, you're the one saying wild shit. Destiny. What are you talking about?
I'm pressing the button.
No
Adam.
way.
Go ahead.
Hold all your slurs, okay?
Jesus. Okay.
We're live. Everyone's live.
Destiny is uncontrollable. He's already talking shit.
True.
No, he's just addressing the tweet that you were angry about, I'm assuming.
Well, I don't think it was the tweet. I think it was the...
Hey, Destiny, I can help you with your parents' debts.
It has to do with
Adam was talking that he was angry in the tweet.
Oh, yeah.
About the calling us conservative.
Oh my God.
Moderator, please get our debate started.
Yes, thank you. Welcome, everybody, to my second panel, Cherry Pick Podcast. I am having you guys here today to talk about all of your takes on progressive pundits vilifying conservatives. I believe you guys have a lot of overlap, but maybe just little disagreements here and there. And I'm curious to see if you guys can do more than just complain about them and have some suggestions and be
Anything
productive.
else?
I don't want to start with. Oh well, I should go around and say who's involved. We have Sitch here, who is off camera because he doesn't show himself. Very cowardly. We also have his co-host of
just moves on, just hits me like that and then moves on. Oh my God.
Co-host of the Right Wing Podcast, Adam Frienden. Both of them run a show. It's comedy based, and they also are producing their own comic book series, correct?
Yes. Okay. Yes. Thank you for mentioning that. Nice.
And then we also have Destiny, the omni-liberal. He's a part-time streamer. Fortunate enough to be able to fit us into his schedule. And lastly, Josiah, Pondering Politics, also part-time streamer. I do want to start, though, with Adam and Sitch to really explain what right-wing podcast hosts are. Where did that start?
Well, look, we don't have a right-wing podcast. We're often characterized as right-wingers, I think wrongly, by people on the left. I think people on the left, they have this stereotype for right-wingers that all right-wingers are greedy racists. And if you don't believe that, then you aren't truly on the left. And also, when they call you right-wing, that's really what they're doing. They're calling you a greedy racist. So I think a good place to start this discussion is probably to ask everyone, do you think all or even most right-wingers are greedy racists?
Oh my God.
No.
Yeah. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I guess we're ending the show. Thanks, Cherry. That was great.
We did it.
Cool. I think some people will actually object to that. So obviously, but yeah. So I don't.
Greedy. Is it the grifting? The greedy labels that got thrown at them?
That's crazy, chat.
I think they use this stereotype because they're super tribalistic. So they like to vilify, obviously, conservatives.
Well, to be fair, everybody is pretty tribalistic, right?
Yeah. Do you think that's something that's exclusive to the left or leftist commentators?
We're not. I disagree that everyone is tribalistic. Like, we try not to be tribalistic, and that's one of the reasons why we kind of get this label as right-wing podcast, because we don't vilify conservatives, and therefore everybody assumes that we are conservatives. Like, I was going to ask, Who is the conservative on this panel? Because I'm not a conservative. I'm a liberal.
Yeah, so when I said everybody's like that, I mean like all like political factions are kind of like that.
Yeah, and I would argue that you're still tribalistic in the sense that you just caused, like you painted broad aspersions with a broad brush against the progressive left. So I think that clearly your analysis, like you have tribalistic tendencies too, right?
Oh, I don't. None.
No.
I think there are plenty of progressive, plenty of liberals that don't use the greedy racist stereotype. So, but I do think a lot of them do. Yeah.
Okay.
But I think we both agree that on the left and the right, the number one lens at which everyone looks at the world is through tribalism first. I'm not just saying that that's just the left. Obviously, the right does that just as much. But we can move on to the specifics of this topic, if you want, Cherry.
Well, I have one question with respect to this topic then. Okay. If you think that tribalism is something that's ubiquitous, it's on both sides of the aisle, and let me ask you, you said that you don't consider yourselves conservative or right wing. Does that mean you consider yourselves left wing, or what do you consider yourselves?
Oh my God.
We're enlightened centrists. We're taking the label back, baby. We're gonna make
enlightened centrist.
That's hard. Okay. That's hard to define because a lot of people think of centrist as like fence sitter. I don't think of it that way. I think commonly people have political positions that are both on left and right are centrists. A lot of people call themselves center-right because they have more right-wing positions than left-wing positions. A lot of people call themselves center-left because they have more left-wing positions than right-wing positions. So I don't necessarily see it as fence sitting because obviously, like I'm pro-choice, I'm pro-progressive taxation. Like I'm not sitting on the fence on any of these topics. So I'm.
And is it the case that for every progressive or left-wing view you have a corresponding right-wing view? Like, is it like 1-to-1, or do you think
we have a chart? Closer? Yes, we're not allowed to have left-wing views unless there's a right-wing
is what I was going to say.
Equally matching.
I think it's more accurate to call us team truth because we're more interested in what the truth is, and a lot of times political perspectives get in the way of deciphering what actually reality is. So that's why we try to avoid the tribalism.
I saw on Twitter earlier that I think it was in response to Brianna Wu or something like that when she said, if you did a survey of all your tweets, your content, do you criticize the left or the right more? So you said the left, Adam, I think. So if you're team truth and you spend more time fixated on, I guess, critiquing the dishonesty of the left, do you think the left is more dishonest than the right?
Well, I feel that since I am on the left, I'm more triggered by the left doing this because they're literally making me look bad. Like when Michael Knowles does something insane, I think, oh, thank God I'm not a conservative. That guy's a lunatic. But when someone on the left does something insane, I think, oh, man, this makes me look terrible. So that's why I spend more time criticizing people on the left. When Brianna Wu says something wacky on our show, it makes me think, oh, this makes the left look bad.
Gotcha. Well, I'm a bit confused, honestly, because I thought you said centrist earlier, and then you said you're on the left. But I understand that these labels they're not even necessarily mutually exclusive, so I won't, pin you down on that. So if you want to go ahead, Cherry, with the topic, we can move on. And then I'll suss out as the conversation goes where I think Adam and Sitch are politically.
So you're going to label us? I thought.
Okay. No,
well, you gave me two labels.
Interesting. So don't worry about the topic.
Yeah.
I think it's important to really hash out, I guess, your concerns about someone considering themselves a centrist. Right?
Gotcha.
And I think it's important for Adam too to have his politics, his political leanings understood, and not just implied or assumed.
I'm for maximizing individual freedom. That's why I consider myself a liberal. I consider liberalism as the pursuit of individual rights, trying to do this balancing act of making society cohere and giving the individual as much personal autonomy as possible. So that's kind of where my political leanings are. So I have to examine each individual case, doing this balancing act of, is this going to be good for individual rights? Is it going to make society collapse? Is it going to be the end of Western civilization? So that's kind of the way I look at things. Is that helpful?
Yeah, it's helpful. Like I said, I mean, obviously, I don't have much experience with you. I've listened to some of your shows. I think I've commented on some of your stuff on Twitter. We've had some back and forth. I think I actually had a back and forth, and I'm thinking about it with Sitch. I was going down memory lane about some more news and Cody Johnston about Jordan Peterson. I was the guy.
That was you?
That was
video
me,
was
buddy.
insane. Oh my god.
That was me. That was me. Big Cody Johnston simp. But
oh god.
Yeah. Don't hold it against me.
Throwing up in my mouth right now.
I know. I'm surprised actually, Adam, that you didn't mention Cody Johnston and some more news in the tweet that kind of set all this off, because I imagine Johnson has to be harsher on conservatives than somebody like David Pakman.
Sure. Yeah, I should edit that tweet. I don't think I can after 24 hours. So.
Do a lot of people know about Cody Johnson? Because I feel like David Pakman's like a bigger name, and Cody's kind of like in this kind of weird space of second.
I feel like some more news is pretty popular, no?
Okay. I mean, unfortunately, but.
Yeah, he's huge. I should have thrown him in there. No, good catch. Good save there.
Oh, there you go.
That's my contribution to your tweet right there. I want some credit when you edit it.
Okay.
That's crazy, chat.
Listening.
Josiah does not super understand who Adam is, but Destiny, wouldn't you relate?
Anything else?
Even though it's your editor who referred to Adam and Sitch as right-wing hosts, do you kind of relate to people just assuming that you're a conservative in disguise?
Yeah, I mean, it happens. For me, I'm less interested in the political labels. I just go by policy positions. If people accuse me of being like a conservative or whatever, I'll just say sure, and then just like talk about the issues. I think it's kind of because the political labels they don't very neatly map onto a lot of our beliefs these days. So rather than try to obsess over like who's conservative, who's liberal, who's whatever, I just say whatever.
Do you think it's easier to grow a platform from that perspective? I mean, you already have a huge platform, and you grew it as a loud and proud progressive.
Did I grow it as a progressive? I mean, my beliefs align with progressives, but I feel like most of my platform growth has come, I think, generally because people appreciate my independence. I think most of my major political growth has happened in that time, because I think like if you wanted to just watch a progressive, I don't know why you would watch me over like say Hassan, because Hassan is going to give you better and more consistent progressive takes probably than I will, because I'm going to have a lot of takes, whether it's Rittenhouse or self-defense or property rights or anti-riots or whatever, that are probably going to fall outside the scope of what a lot of progressives online will advocate for. So I think it just kind of depends. But
isn't that, don't you differ on those positions because the progressives are getting the facts of the situation incorrect, and you are more interested in following the facts?
Yeah, but that's just explaining why then I don't know if I necessarily identify strongly as a progressive. Like, come here for progressive takes. Because if you come to me just for progressive takes, you're probably going to be a little bit disappointed a lot of the time.
I've been watching you for a long time, obviously, and I feel like you have moved more towards kind of understanding the right wing and not really straw manning their arguments, and I do see you as kind of a force for good in the space in doing that.
That's crazy.
But I do feel like there was a time when you were maybe less considerate of other people's political beliefs.
Yeah, I mean, like I definitely have taken a really hard turn towards trying to be empathetic towards people, for sure. And then, I do come off as like very empathetic towards conservatives, usually because I'm treating them like children. But yeah, I mean, that's been kind of like my stated explicit political goal as of recently, is to be that. Yeah.
I mean, I think you can take empathy too far, like, Mr. Girl and stuff like that. But I do like that you are empathetic of some of the conservatives. Definitely not the greedy racists. I think obviously none of us are in favor of them. But there are plenty
wait, I feel like there's a tweet or something I missed. Who are the greedy racists?
Well, do you disagree that a lot of progressives have this stereotype of conservatives as greedy racists? So when you say,
for sure, they do, yeah. But I mean,
okay,
conservatives do the same towards like progressives, as calling them like fucking groomer child molesters, right?
Sure,
communist, Marxist,
totally, they do. But I think the greedy racist stereotype is more pervasive on the left. But you do have on the right. Wait,
compare it to the groomer narrative on the right?
No way.
Yes.
Oh, that's just absolutely, completely not true.
Okay.
It's become like if you're not convinced already, like I feel like the groomer narrative has literally become like the de facto unifying position of the entire conservative party right now. Maybe not even necessarily because they hate LGBT people or whatever, just because they have literally nothing else to talk about. Like, legislatively, how many different... Oh, God, yeah.
I just want to. There's a difference here. Okay, there is I
Oh my
don't
God.
deny that they're calling people on the left groomers, but they don't mean pedophiles. Some of them obviously do mean pedophiles. I do think when people on the left are using the greedy racist stereotype of people on the right, they mean that they are greedy racists. Like they believe they.
When they use the word groomer, you don't think they're trying to signal like?
Yeah,
like,
no,
you don't
I think the groomer
That's
word is
crazy.
100% equivocation. It is 100% equivocation. There's a reason why they picked the word groomer, and there's a reason why they
Gotcha.
focus on school
Anything
children.
else?
Okay. Yeah, I don't. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I would
think-
also point out to Destiny's point, I think that when we're talking about like an exchange of insults, for me, it also makes a difference that I feel like Republicans who actually wield state power are also more likely to throw these insults at the opposition. Like, I don't hear Joe Biden going around referring to, other Republicans as racist per se, but I do hear Republican leaders, like even I think Marjorie Taylor Greene does it all the time, and she's the de facto Speaker of the House, referring to people as groomers and Marxists and communists and so forth. So
I mean, wait, didn't Joe Biden literally his first campaign ad when he ran against Trump originally, wasn't it him? He had the clip of Trump, supposedly calling the Charlottesville people fine people
Yeah.
and equating that with Trump supporting white nationalism. So I don't know how you can say that like Joe Biden is not calling people on the right racist.
Hold on. There's these, to try to equate these two things is insane. So Trump stating that there were good people on both sides was absolutely a wild and insane statement to make at a rally where people are literally carrying tiki torches. That was Trump's quote.
Okay, but wait. When Trump when he says that, and then he
No
immediately
way.
says, "I'm not talking about
Wow.
those people. I'm talking about the people protesting the statues, taking down the statues." And you could say that was a stupid thing to say because I agree with it. But obviously, when Joe Biden puts that up there without the clarifying comment, he's trying to associate Trump's support is a white nationalist base. So you can't say Joe Biden is not throwing the racist label at Trump or.
Well, hold on.
conservative.
Well, we're not arguing whether or not he's throwing the racist label. You can argue
That's
that
what
he is.
that's what Pondering just said. He said, "I've never heard Joe Biden say that."
well, I
I'm
think
arguing
what I
whether or
said
not
is
it's
that.
fair to
Oh my God.
say that. Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Wait,
Well, I was just going to say, I don't think that it's something that Joe Biden habitually does. I'm sure you can find, like you just cited an example of 2 or 3 years ago in a campaign ad, and I'll take you at face value there
Didn't he
because
just
I don't
do it
recall.
recently? I could have sworn. But
If you can find recent examples
about the
of,
MAGA Republicans. What do you think he was talking about?
I thought you.
well, actually, he went out of his way to clear. Wait a minute, he went. Yeah, but hang on.
That's
the
crazy,
problem with that
Chad.
particular quote, and see, that's so funny to me because to me this is indicative of like a broader hypocrisy that I
Anything
think
else?
is baked into your baked into your worldview. So number one, that particular quote, when in that speech from Independence Hall, Joe Biden went out of his way repeatedly to say, "Not all Republicans, not all Republicans,
Right.
not all Republicans," and then of course
Just the
Republicans
MAGA
lied.
ones.
Number one, Republicans then lied about it. All Republicans, Joe Biden is tarring and feathering all Republicans. Number one. And number two, he was referring to, that fascistic substrain of MAGA Republicans who, want to overturn elections and rewrite democracy in order to install Trump, God Emperor, as an unelected dictator. That's perfectly fair to call out. What was wrong with what he said?
So, to be clear, because you said that something wrong with our worldview, because I don't think you understand it, but that's fine. This was part of the conversation could be about, because we actually watched that speech, and I said literally the same thing, saying that there's a lot of rhetoric that a lot of people on the right will get pissed off about, but he did try to clarify in that statement that he wasn't saying everyone, and he was trying to narrow in on Trump. So I said all those things. Right, so I don't disagree with that. What I disagree with is the characterization that you're kind of putting out here, which is, I agree that with Adam that originally
No
when the
way.
groomer label came out, it was
Wow.
kind of like wishy-washy about what it meant. I agree that now it has completely been dominated by the accusation of sexual impropriety towards children. I am completely against using the groomer label for that reason now, and I do think it's widely overused, and I do think it's gross. But I think you have to accept that it is like a common old as dirt tactic, at least for the last 20, 30 years in politics, for the Democrats to associate Republicans as being racist, and especially
Oh my
recently that
God.
has been kind of the go-to move. And it's weird for me to hear that you're saying that that's not the case.
Well, I'm not.
Before you reply to him, 1 second, I just want to be clear that this isn't a 2v2 debate. I know Adam and Sitch are going to be defensive. They do a show together, and it's their image together that's being challenged. But by no means are Josiah and Destiny on the same team or anything, so everyone can
That's
speak for
crazy,
themselves,
chat.
okay?
Oh,
We are on
not?
the
Is
same
this
team.
not a
We
2v2?
We canvassed
not a
together in
2v2.
Georgia, baby. We were canvassing in
Gotcha.
that Warnock
Anything
runoff
else?
election. Adam and Sitch, you can actually thank Stevens canvassing and the
please
Democrats,
stop. Oh.
that Democrats still have a majority in the Senate. You can thank this man right here.
Well, there you go. Thank you, sir.
Destiny did it? Oh.
Single-
Yeah, he
Handedly.
did single-handedly. Yep.
I think that was mathematically proven. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, where were we?
Well, but listen, I don't think anybody here is denying the fact that there's a large. I mean, I don't know what the percentage is, but intuitively, I have to imagine a considerable numbers, particularly on Twitter, of outspoken progressives and leftists are quick to tar and feather the other side, and I do agree that that's common. I'm just saying among Democratic power players, I don't think I think the groomer label is cast with more recklessness and more frequency by Republican leaders than the word racist at Republican rank and file people by Democrats. That's my position. That's my understanding. Maybe you disagree.
I
disagree,
understand.
but
I think
go
it's
ahead.
perceptually just because the racist label has been thrown for so long that we've kind of grown accustomed to it, and it's lost a lot of its power.
Do you
I
think,
that's why your
therefore?
perception is.
Well, I agree. I agree that word has been thrown around a hell of a lot more in terms of like the political zeitgeist than groomer. But
No way.
I guess my question would be:
Wow.
Do you feel that Democratic leaders still use that word to describe Republican voters with the same frequency that you think they used to, or do you think that it's comparable?
Well, you keep bringing it to the Democratic leaders. I don't have offhand. I don't remember every Democratic politician that's made that claim.
He doesn't
I
even
do
know
know that
all
it's
the
a common.
politicians? Oh, no.
It is a. I know it's a common thing that is in almost constantly in all these news articles. Is trying to paint it this way, trying to
Oh, my
frame it this
God.
way.
Well, Hillary's deplorable speech. She's actually called him racist in that. So I don't know. It's kind of big.
Do you remember what the exact quote was with the basket full of deplorables there? Because again, I don't think she was referring to all
Racist,
Republicans.
sexist, homophobe.
Deplorables.
She
I'm just
said
gonna look
like
this up in
50
real time.
She said 50% of the Republican Party. I mean, you can look it up. I'm just going off of memory, but
That's
I'm
crazy,
just saying that's
chat.
like a pretty big thing. I think it cost her the election too, as well. I
It
don't think it
might
was
also
good
be James
politics.
Comey
Gotcha.
announcing that
Anything
he's,
else?
reopening the email investigation, Russia's interference, probably a confluence of factors there. Just to be grossly generalistic, you could put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables, right? They're racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic, Islamophobic, you name it.
Yeah, there
Okay,
you
so
go.
that
okay, 50% of the Trump supporters.
of Trump
That's
supporters.
35 million people, right? 70 million people voted. That's a lot of people. Oh my God.
Let me ask a question, just because what you guys are saying is bringing up a memory, and you can tell me if I'm wrong or not. But did Mitt Romney have a similar situation with a 47% number?
Hell yeah, he did.
Yeah,
That he referred
did.
to? Okay.
What did
Yeah.
Romney
He was
say?
Democrat when he said it.
He said
Yeah.
something about 40.
He said 40%. He was using
Americans
that was the
don't pay
lazy
income tax and
and
are unlikely to
shiftless.
vote.
Yeah,
So he
that was the
wasn't
lazy and
interested in fighting
shiftless
them.
stereotype
Fighting
of left
Damn.
people on the left, right?
I don't think it was a laziness. I think he was
Well,
articulating.
I remember that quote
okay.
rather specifically. It was definitely about
No way.
laziness. Yeah, people who don't
Wow.
want to work, people who don't want to do anything. Yeah, he basically said all of Democrats were lazy, which was also bad politics, horrible politics.
Okay, so I guess just to move the conversation along, I will accept that there have been leaders on both sides of the aisle to cast, wide aspersions at either the political opponents of the other side or their supporters. Okay, I guess what's the next step?
my
is it
God.
just that you see it more on the left than the right, or I'm not exactly sure where we're going with the conversation.
Well, I think
Well,
it's
but
bad.
wait.
ahead.
So you accept, because I feel like I'm being kind of like gaslit here. You accept that calling the right racist is a common tactic that we see in media, right? Just look it up. There's an article the other day, accusing Ramaswamy of trying to throw racist,
That's crazy, chat.
racist red meat to the Republican Party. There's a famous article the blackface of white supremacy that was thrown out against
Gotcha.
black
Anything
Republican
else?
politicians. Every single person was calling Clarence Thomas, the C word because of his position on affirmative action. I don't know how you can deny this.
I didn't deny that. Again, I think I even said there is an outspoken contingent on the left which, again, will insult the supporters on the right or right-leaning politicians and use the racist word. I don't think I've denied that. And if that's what you took from it, let me just be very emphatic. The word racist has been lobbed by progressives and people on the left against their political opponents for decades.
Okay.
Well, also from big establishment media too, as well.
Ha, ha, ha.
CNN, you couldn't go 5 minutes without them them making those accusations. The New York Times probably has a half dozen articles making those accusations, like big
A minute comment is a
left
stretch,
wing.
Adam.
What's that?
You can't go 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, on CNN, they commonly said you couldn't go 5 minutes without listening to CNN without someone saying Trump praised neo-Nazis, which makes the assessment that anyone who votes for Trump or is a Trump supporter is basically in favor of someone who would support neo-Nazis.
No
so I don't
way.
know how you can't call that person a
Wow.
racist.
Do you think there's anything?
Well, real quick. Okay, so I do agree that these labels get thrown around too much, and it ends up being a little bit damaging. But I also think there's a weird game that happens where because they get thrown out too much and because they are damaging when they're thrown out too much, people act like you can't use them ever. Like, I get really triggered when people get really upset about that MAGA, the MAGA
Republican
conservative thing that Biden said. It is a fact that there is a, like, I hate to use this word, but there is a like fascist swell that exists under Donald Trump. But there are people that are desiring a single leader to overthrow the American republic. Like that's undeniable. Now, I don't know how else to say that. There are no nice ways or nice words, but that is true. It's also true that Donald Trump said that somebody couldn't preside on a court case because his parents came from Mexico. It's also true that Donald Trump is on record asking Giuliani how he can ban Muslims from entering the United States, right? I agree that these racist labels get thrown around too often, but I feel like sometimes people run a little bit too much cover for conservatives by saying they're thrown around too often, when sometimes conservatives are acting in ways that need to be called out, especially in regards to MAGA Republicans.
Two things can be true simultaneously, and I'm sure you would both agree, I hope, and I would like to ask if you do agree with that simultaneously progressives can be at times cavalier with the word racist, and yet sometimes conservatives can be racist. Yeah.
Yeah.
We call out
wait.
racist. Hold on, let me just finish.
Okay.
We call out racists all the time. We debate racists. I can't stand racists, okay? And a lot of people, I feel like people will play this game like they're just joking around. And I think these people are legitimately racist. When we call them out, our audience gets upset about it. They say the same thing you're talking about, Destiny. I totally agree with you. They're like, oh, you're being too harsh on them, Adam. And I'm like, it's so obvious what's going on here. They're gaslighting the shit out of me. This person's a racist. So I agree with you, but it waters down the term when you're calling somebody who accidentally did an inconsiderate joke and has not shown any sign of racism in their entire life. You're trying to cancel them as racist. Let's save it for the people who are legitimately racist.
Agree.
I think that when you're talking about that the term, this is part of what we talked about, why it's dangerous to throw around the term racist and fascist so liberally or freely, is that it creates the cry wolf syndrome, where then when you actually have someone being racist or being authoritarian, no one will listen to it anymore. And we are afraid, and I am bothered by a lot of things that Trump did regarding trying to get the states to overthrow the slate of electors and all these things. And I think that all this happens, and the reason that there is, or not the whole reason, but a big reason why there is this fervor behind Trump and behind this, destroy all the institutions, destroy the deep state and all this stuff, is because the overuse of these terms, the overuse of the attacks on Donald Trump. The second he became president, he was attacked for every single thing. When he had enough flaws, enough things that were realistic to attack, but if you attack him on everything, even when he doesn't deserve it, the people just lose faith. They don't believe in anything in the media. They think everything's corrupt. And that's what opens the door, in my opinion, for people to kind of turn to Donald Trump and say, hey, we do need this strong man to kind of come in here and wipe everything out because nothing can be trusted at all.
Yeah, I don't think we disagree with it. But we also have to be able to call them out, when it happens.
And also to say that that's not justified. While we might be able to understand the reactions of some people in Trump's orbit, it certainly doesn't excuse it. Oh, they were mean to Trump, therefore it justifies his attempts to overturn the election. There's a chasm between these two things, which needs to be called out.
It's interesting that, and I don't know if you're accusing me of this or you're just pointing it out, that whenever I say what I just said, people turn to the justification thing. I'm not saying anything's justified. I'm just explaining the process of which this happens descriptively. It's obviously not justified.
Sure. Well, okay. Well, full disclosure, and this goes back to, I guess, again, the tweet, which was, at least on paper, the predicate for this conversation. When it was brought to my attention, I remember when Cherry sent me the tweet and asked for my take on it, I was like, I'm really not married
No
to
way.
the idea of just demonizing
Wow.
conservative voters for a few reasons. Number one, I'm not entirely sure it's efficacious. And number two, I was born in a red rural state. I grew up in a red rural state. I would say 60 to 70% of the people in my orbit, in my life, including my sisters, are all conservative and Republican voting. I don't vilify them. I don't hate them. As a matter of fact, not only do I think that they've been deceived and radicalized by bad faith actors who should know better, I think that they're the victims very often of shitty Republican
God.
policy, because Republican policy is shitty. If you look at the poorest, least educated, most federally dependent states in this country, 9 out of 10 of them virtually are Republican led. So I don't think it's right to just say if you're conservative or if you vote Republican, you're an ontologically evil piece of shit or anything like that. But I also think it depends on who you're.
Delusional.
You.
Well, sure, in part.
Opportunity to
I mean,
read
you are
forward-
painting a picture
One
of
second,
someone
Adam.
That's crazy,
delusional.
chat.
So
I'll
go ahead.
let you, Adam. I'll let you pick it up, but I just want for everybody listening in to be able to
Gotcha.
hear the tweet
Anything
that
else?
brought us together. So this
Sure.
was tweeted from Adam's account, and he said,
Oh, I brought it up.
Ooh, let
I was
Adam
gonna
read
do the
it.
same.
Adam, read it.
"Oh, do you want to read it, Adam?"
Oh no,
read it.
go ahead, Sherry.
God damn
Come
it.
on,
Okay.
you-
Yeah.
you're a
Okay,
better
well,
reader.
the tweet. It's ironic that most of the political pundits who want big change, like Hassan Vosh, Majority Report, David Pacman, spend all day vilifying the people they will have to win over to achieve that change. You can't get big things done without the support of conservative voters. If you really want things like higher wages for the working class or universal health care, it's dumb to demonize conservative voters. Just so you can grow a progressive platform. Stop actively criticizing Wall Street for its fixation on short-term gains while you do the exact same thing with your own social media accounts.
Oh man,
Adam.
What a great tweet.
amazing! Who wrote that? That's. Look, I have a tear in my eye. So it sounds like you agree with that because you're saying it's not effective to demonize him. Look, what you just said, and this is why I'm constantly being confused with a conservative or being accused of being a conservative, because I speak conservative. I have
No way.
conservative friends.
Wow.
And I can hear what you're saying from their perspective. And I think this is why we have a lot of conservatives in our audience, even though every single one of those conservatives knows that we're dirty, dirty liberals. They listen to us because we have respect for them. And everything that you said comes off as conservatives are childish, stupid, naive, delusional people who constantly vote against their
my
own
God.
interests. It's like, what's the problem with Kansas? Movie just downloaded from your brain right into this live stream, and everyone could pick up on it. Everyone was like, this guy doesn't understand me.
You know what's hilarious about that? And I guess the first thing I'd want you to do is tell me, what am I wrong about, number one? But number two,
That's
there
crazy,
again, this
chat.
goes to the strange double standard, I think, which is baked into your worldview, which is
What
you're
is my
upset.
worldview?
Gotcha.
Wait a minute.
Anything else?
Well, let me finish. So you're seemingly outraged that I pointed out the fact that most of the poorest, least educated, least healthy, most federally dependent states in this country are led by Republicans, which is a fact. But when Donald Trump and Republican leaders talk about California, Chicago, D.C., where's your outrage? This is coming from people who actually have power. It's almost like Republicans get a blank check to demonize every progressive, every Democrat, blue cities, blue states. They're all shitholes. People are fleeing from them, whatever. And we just skip over that. It's almost like baked into the price of politics. Like it's okay for Republicans and their surrogates in the media to say all kinds of terrible things about not just specific Democrats, but the Democratic Party writ large.
So sooner or later, someone has to put the guns down. Okay, I am not in favor of Republicans demonizing Democrats in the exact same way, and it goes to my tweet. If you want to build large coalitions, if you want to get something like UBI passed, okay, something that I think that we will need in the future, you are going to have to get buy-in from both conservatives and progressives, and you're going to have to find a way to pitch these policies that is non-offensive to both sides. So all I am saying is, you are saying things that are very offensive to the conservative ear. You probably don't even know that you're doing it. I understand that. Look, plenty of conservatives say things that are offensive to progressive ears. I understand that as
my
well.
God.
So
I'm just blown away that the your
respect
feelings
you.
party, that you're so worried about the your feelings party. I remember when Trump won in 2016, it was you're feeling snowflake back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then I also remember when Trump lost in 2020. I remember this vividly. It was on a Fox News. It was one of the Fox News panels, and one of the guest commentators said, "Listen, Trump supporters have just been dealt a devastating defeat. We really need the Democrats to show some grace," or whatever.
Gotcha. We're just whataboutism off. I don't think it's helpful. I really don't.
Well, maybe you should be egalitarian in your criticism then, because where is this tweet but for the right? That's where you lose me, because both sides are trying to win elections and affect policy of some kind. Now, I agree, the Republican policy...
Look, if you want me to tweet this out with Michael Knowles and
it might be helpful, because all the people...
I'm more than happy to do it, okay?
I don't understand why it's not your instinct, especially if you say that you have a right-leaning audience and you're...
I am...
Wait.
I already said that.
Wait.
Listen,
you can't... Okay,
what I
wait.
feel.
You point to like a single tweet. If you would go back on my Twitter timeline, you'd see that one of the tweets I made a couple of days ago was all about how the narrative around the Biden investigation,
the Hunter Biden stuff.
The Devin Archer testimony was bullshit. And if you actually read the Devin Archer testemony, in my opinion, it's evidence that he didn't fire Shokin.
Yeah, it's exculpatory evidence, 100%.
Right. I mean, it's just you're like painting this weird view of Adam that is not at all not realistic at all.
Number one,
Adam talk about on our show at all. We constantly criticizing the right on our show, much to a lot of right wingers in our audience getting mad at us. We lose. When we cover the January 6 hearings, I think we probably lost like 500 or 1,000 live viewers permanently from our audience for that. And I always get thrown the label of TDS. So it really kind of bothers me that. And first of all, I thought we were going to be arguing something specific. I don't know why we're arguing about like Adam doesn't do enough to complain about like the right, which is not even remotely true. So there's just this weird conversation that we're having in the first place.
Well, it has been a meandering conversation, but all I've just said is, listen, again, I don't agree with vilifying conservative voters. Number one, and is a general practice, right?
Well, you're telling me I don't do it enough.
Well, no, I'm saying that I don't think you criticize the right enough. I don't understand why there's
asking me to vilify people in a tweet. I mean, that was your request.
Well, if you're gonna vilify, shouldn't you be even-handed with it, especially if you're a centrist? That's where I'm confused. It's like
Are we talking about vilifying conservative pundits instead of
or that? Voters? Because I imagine that's the tweet
I already answered this question. I'll say it again. When we have people listen to our show, it comes off. Obviously, I talk about UBI, I talk about MMT, I talk about universal healthcare. Everyone knows I'm a liberal, okay? So every single conservative in our audience is not going to take my opinion seriously because they're going to say he's not one of us. So why am I trying to be something that I'm not to these people to try and win them over? It's not going to be feasible. Obviously, you're going to criticize your side more because you feel like you have a bigger influence over them. That's why I'm criticizing the left. I'm saying this is ineffective and we should go in a different direction.
I'm sorry, I'm confused. Is most of your audience right wing or left wing? I thought you were.
Look, most of our audience is probably right wing. It's probably 60-40.
Then you curry more influence with the right. You should probably try to hold the right accountable.
Only because the left has mischaracterized us
as
right wingers. So left people have a trepidation about watching our show because we've been wrongly mischaracterized.
I can explain to you, Josiah, they are not a political show like David Pakman would be. They are very specifically a comedy show, but they do cover politics and current news, and they always make it clear their big inspiration for starting a YouTube channel was from the Disney movie Lilo and Stitch.
Oh my God.
That is everything you said.
So much sense. Oh, Hama.
True.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, first of all of that is not true. Sitch, we're live in front of Destiny.
This is a comedy show, okay? What do you mean?
If you want that meme to spread, you just you have to tell everyone.
I kind of do want that meme to spread, yes.
Okay. Anyway, we do cover politics. I mean, we cover movies and stuff like that, but I'm more interested in what the truth is. I'm doing this because I find it interesting to talk to people. I feel like truth springs from debate among friends. And so much of this space is debate among bitter fucking enemies. And no truth is coming out of it. And it's disparaging. It's demoralizing. I don't like it.
We're arguing a lot on a topic that I don't think we necessarily disagree on. I'm trying to figure out where the disagreement, because I think we all agree that you probably shouldn't just lambast people as racist. I think we all agree on that.
Yeah, we do.
But that sometimes it might be appropriate to use the word, which I think all of us agree with that.
Yes, totally. Agreed.
So I don't know what. I'm not entirely sure how we've managed to.
Let me ask. Okay, we might have a disagreement on this, and it is germane to the tweet itself. So I don't
Why
watch.
do you have to disagree? Why can't we just be friends? Come
Because
on.
we're on a
we
debate
can
show,
disagree.
so
We can
need to
disagree
about
as
something.
friends. This is a friend. Listen, Adam. The few Twitter interactions that we've had have been friendly. Sitch and I have been a bit more combative, but even then, when he was like tweeting out that shit about Hunter Biden, the laptop, that debunk, I loved it, man. That was a solid, thorough debunk. Great stuff. But we might have a friendly disagreement about this. You might be able to educate me here. So I don't watch Hassan.
No way.
But I have consumed quite a bit of Pac-Man, Cedar, and Vosh. Do they really vilify conservative voters? I know they vilify Republican politicians. That's why I was just looking for clarity. Is that what you mean, or do you literally mean just the average Republican voter?
Wait, you're gonna say that with Vosh? You're not even gonna throw him out as like?
Well,
the
I was gonna give you an example with Vosh, but first I would like you to offer some clarity on that.
What was the question again?
Oh my God.
Do they just vilify Republican politicians, or did you mean they actually vilify Cedar, Pac-Man, and Vosh vilify Republican
I think
voters?
Vosh vilifies conservatives all the time. Like he literally uses the greedy, racist stereotype.
Right. With respect, I'm sorry, just to clarify, I understand conservative, but conservative politicians, like I think it's okay to talk shit about
conservative
Republican
voters.
Gotcha.
Okay, that's what he wanted.
uses Vosh uses the greedy, racist stereotype for conservatives all the time.
So
I think that's the only stereotype he has.
I mean, can you vilify the politicians that people are voting for in droves without vilifying the people voting for them? I'm not sure that that distinction even exists.
If that's the case, then I think we're fucked, because somebody like Trump, who basically has a stranglehold on the Republican Party, he's the nominee by a clear mile. I guess it depends on what you mean by vilify. How could I describe Trump in a way that wouldn't be vilifying?
Well, no.
him
So you
people?
can. So I think you can try to understand why, even if you disagree with Trump and everything about him, you can try to understand why you think it is that he appeals to people and why people are voting for him. But when all you do is you just say like, oh, he's he's an evil, right-wing, authoritarian, fascist, racist, and therefore, if that's where you end the statement. It's going to lead people to believe.
Nobody here is advocating for that, right? I think we all think that like it's good.
Well,
to have substantive
I don't know.
critique,
Is that
right?
what is Pondering advocating for? I guess.
Well. So again, I think so to me there are like I guess if I wanted to get really reductive, I can just easily conceive of two types of quote unquote Republican voters. So you have people who I would consider just conservative, right? So they just believe in, robust Second Amendment rights. They believe that life begins at conception. So they're pro-life. They're, pro freedom of speech, yada, yada. They probably grew up in a red, rural, conservative environment. Their parents, grandparents, and so on and so forth, all Republican, all conservative. And so they would just vote for whoever the nominee is, whoever the Republican is. So that to me is a generic Republican voter. Then I think you have a subset that I would consider part of Cult 45, the MAGA cult, which it really, if it's Trump versus the GOP, they'll side with Trump. That, the election was stolen from Trump. He was justified in pursuing every available option to try to overturn the results. It was fine to try to litigate his way into a second term. If violence is necessary to reclaim the country, then so be it. Yada.
That's crazy, chat.
Is a different type of Republican. I think one is eminently more relatable than the other. I think one is more dangerous than the other. And then I think you have Republican politicians and conservative thought leaders as a separate category who are the most morally culpable and the most deserving of criticism and harsh rebuke. I don't think that's why I'm asking, like, you asked the question, like, is it possible to vilify Trump? And maybe vilify is using the wrong word here, but how can I criticize Trump? How can I call Trump for what he is in a way that to your satisfaction would not cast aspersions on those who vote for him?
I think you can criticize all the policies, all the things that you think are dangerous, and I think if you, or anyone, if Pac-Man or Hassan or any of these people would explain and understand why and how people on the right are motivated to vote for the things that they vote for, and the answer is not just racism or something negative, and understand where right-wing moral principles come from and where the moral foundations that make up the conservative movement in America, if they were to understand any of this, but they don't, and explain any of this, but they don't, then I don't think we'd be where we are. But I think if all you do is you sit there and you vilify right-wing politicians, then you're obviously going to say, well, the people that vote for them obviously support, these policies. These racist, horrible policies. Right?
Well, I don't think I'm not entirely sure. And Stephen, feel free to jump in any time. I'm not entirely sure that tracks, because I don't think Republicans, even as a party, are particularly policy motivated these days. Number one. Number two, you said if you attack his policies. What if I wanted to attack his character? What if I wanted to?
You can attack his character. You can attack his person, his character, his policies, whatever. That's not what I'm saying.
How on earth can you attack somebody's character, person, and policies without it feeling like you're demonizing or vilifying them?
Yeah, that's where I'm confused.
No. You can vilify and talk about these politicians all you want, okay? What I'm saying is that if all you do is talk about how all these politicians on one side, if all you do is talk about all the politicians on the right are racist, or all you do is talk about how the politicians on the left are socialist groomers,
that's crazy,
okay?
Chat.
And you don't actually explore why it is that left-wing voters are voting for who they vote for, or why right-wing voters are voting for who they vote for. Obviously, you're going to be saying that the people voting for them are in favor of either racism or grooming, right? I mean, you would acknowledge that, when someone on the right talks about how all these left-wing politicians are groomers, what does that say about the people voting for those politicians?
I suppose you could read an implication there that the supporters are themselves.
You suppose? I mean, I'm
just imagining. I don't know of any commentator who does this anywhere, that when they offer a critique of a particular politician, they follow it up with an equal amount of time devoted to why these supporters
It doesn't have to be so it doesn't have to be this equal. I have a chart.
So
everything has to be perfectly balanced. All I'm saying is that if all you cover is these are right-wing politicians, they're all bad, they're all racist, or if all you do is cover left-wing politicians and say, wait, let me just finish.
No one disagrees with this. Why do we keep doing this? Literally, no one here is disagreeing.
You keep saying you don't disagree with it, and I feel like you don't, but Pondering does. He does not share your opinion.
Wait, Pondering, do you think that we should call all conservatives racist and
no?
That's not no. That's not the argument. Pondering asked, how can you, he said, are these people, are Hassan and Dave Hackman and Vosh, really vilifying the voter base, or are they only vilifying the politicians? And I'm saying if all you do is talk about how these politicians are evil all day, obviously that's going to have implications in the viewer's mind about the people voting for them. Would you agree or disagree with that, Destiny?
If you vilify the politicians all day, does it make the people think that you don't like the people themselves?
That are voting for these politicians.
It really is going to come down to the word vilify. That's doing a lot of heavy lifting here. What do we mean by vilify?
If you're going to say all these Republican politicians are racist authoritarians, or all these left-wing politicians are socialist groomers, and that's all and that's the primary focus of your channel, is that not going to lead the audiences watching these channels to think, well, the people voting for these politicians must support the racism or they must support the grooming?
I mean, to some extent, but you have fundamental disagreements with these other politicians. Of course you're going to have fundamental disagreements with the voter base as well. There's not a way to get around that. Trump is a fascist. If you support him, you are supporting a fascist. I'll try to explain that as empathetically as I can, but to water that down or to take away from that message is necessarily devaluing or I guess missing the point of what I'm trying to say. It can't be that when we go to the voting box, it can't be that everybody's choice is equal and we can all do what we want to do and everybody loves each other. You can be empathetic towards a person's position. I understand why you'd support a fascist.
Okay, so you disagree with Pondering. You think that they are vilifying the voters. You just think it's fine.
I think we're getting hung up. What does the word vilify mean?
Well, I think if you're going to call everyone voting for Trump a fascist.
No, I said they support a fascist. Is that vilifying? If that's vilifying, then fine, I guess. But then all of politics is based around vilifying. They're literal villains. Right? Your political opponents, to some extent, are villains. They oppose you in your political process. They are the antagonists to your protagonists. It's such a weird.
Do you think the people supporting Trump go in and say, "I'm voting for this guy because he's a fascist"?
I think that's a separate question.
Wait. No, do they do it because of that? No, but that's usually just because they're too uneducated to know what fascism is. If you were to describe fascism in other words, I think the majority, 90% of Trump's voter base, if you were to say, do you think it's really important that we have a really strong leader that sometimes takes the reins away from the corrupt institutions of our government and takes the country in the direction that we really needed to go because he knows what's right for this country? I think 90% of Trump voters plus would say yes, right? You could describe fascism in other words and they'd vote for him, but they're not going to say, I vote for a fascist.
I don't agree with that definition of even authoritarianism because you're not even saying abolish the government except for the president, have the president be the sole source of power.
You don't need
under
to
what you just
abolish
laid
the
out.
government. You can have a puppet government. You can have a government that technically functions, but the president is allowed to tell the vice president,
Oh
hey,
my God.
I need you to overrule the vote for the presidency. Or you can have a government that has institutions, but the president is allowed to fire and replace the heads of the DOJ, the FBI, the CIA anytime they do something he doesn't like, right? You can have
And also
a government
trying to
that's a puppet
expand
government.
that power too,
Yeah.
as we know that Trump is trying to do.
I think if
for
you would ask
2024.
the average Trump voter and say, do you want an authoritarian government or do you want Trump to be the sole source of power with no
You-
other branches of government, really? I don't think most average Trump voters would be in favor of that.
That's crazy.
Really?
Chad.
I
The
think
ones
you
that
might
talk
be
about-
able to
wait,
phrase
wait,
that-
The ones
yeah.
that talk about abolishing all of the executive departments, the ones that talk about how
Gotcha.
corrupt Congress
Anything
is, the ones
else?
that don't like, well, now they like the Supreme Court, but the ones that are all about like states' rights, whatever, I disagree. I think that if you were to present in nice enough terms the idea of like an authoritarian leader, I think most, not Republicans, most Trump supporters would absolutely go for that. Absolutely, of course.
I think you could phrase the question in such a sanitized way that would get more support, if not a majority support, a disturbing plurality. Yeah, depending on how you pitch it. Yeah, if
No,
you say,
I-
listen, should Trump be anointed God Emperor? Yeah, probably even most Trump supporters would be like, yeah, that's kind of creepy. But
Do you
if
have
you
any
phrase it,
evidence
no.
for this, or is this just like a gut intuition?
I think
I would
it's
say
an
it's-
intuition based on
Ha, ha,
literally
ha, ha.
the collective rhetoric, policies, and behaviors of Donald J.
Oh,
Trump.
it is a gut intuition. Okay, thanks.
Well,
I
hold on.
think-
Wait. You can call
No,
it a
I would
gut
like to
intuition.
know. Look,
Wait.
I
Hold on.
think-
No.
What?
Stop.
No,
That is
what
such
you
an
are
unbelievably
saying-
dishonest question. Wait, is that a gut intuition? Yeah, I don't have every single Trump voter in front of me, and there's not polling data saying, do you support a fascist? When we talk about the gut intuitions we form in politics, those are based by the behavior of the supporters, by the behavior of the politicians, by the policies they state, by the social positions they have, and by the behavior they exhibit in office. What is the behavior that
Still
Donald
a
Trump
gut
exhibited in
intuition.
office? It was that of a no. It's not just an
still
intuition.
a
It's an
gut
intuition the same
intuition.
way that if somebody points a gun
No
at my
way.
face, I'm intuitively going to think he's going to shoot and
Wow.
kill me. So yeah, it's an intuition,
It's
but
not
you're using
the same.
it is
It's
absolutely the same.
One person pointing a gun at you and the entire electorate is a completely different situation.
Donald J.
okay?
Trump pointed a gun at the United States and said, I am going to unilaterally overthrow our elections. It doesn't get much more serious than that. And he has widespread support from Republicans to do it.
Destiny,
What is it, like
Destiny,
70% of Republicans now think that the election wasn't even legitimate?
Yep,
Destiny,
it's
why-
back from like in the upper 50s
Oh
to
my
low
God.
60s. A year ago, it's back up to 70.
Look, I would like some evidence. I'm just saying it's a gut intuition. Like, maybe your intuition is correct. I would just like some.
Okay, what kind of evidence would you be
I
looking
would
for
like.
here?
Look, we constantly.
Wait, no,
debate
I want to
this
answer that
too.
question. When you finish this, I want you to answer that question. What kind of evidence do you
Okay.
want?
Well, no, we debate
You-
all the time whether or not we're teetering on the edge of fascism.
That's
No one-
I
crazy,
don't want to
Chad.
live in a.
I just
I
want to
don't
know
wanna
what is the
live in a
evidence you
fa-
need.
Some sort of poll
Gotcha.
that asks him.
Anything
I don't know.
else?
Like, my intuition is if you did a poll asking people, would you support Trump if he wanted to become dictator for life? I would like to think that a lot of Trump supporters would be like, no, I'm not in favor of that. I want him to have a second term. I don't want him to be dictator for life. You could be right, Destiny. Your intuition could be correct.
Okay, no,
I would
okay,
be
so here's-
mortified
I understand
by
what you're
that,
saying.
But I would like
Sure.
to look at a poll instead of just going on
that's
your
fine. I don't. Okay, so
intuition.
here's a question. If you were to poll the Republican Party, do you think the majority of them would be in favor of Trump pardoning himself from his own federal charges?
Ha, ha,
Yes.
ha, ha.
Do you think the majority
Of
would be
course
in
they
favor
would.
of disbanding the investigations against him?
Of course they would.
Do you think the
Yes.
majority of them supported him when he told Pence to overthrow the election?
I don't think so, no.
Do you think the majority of them supported him when he said that the election was fraudulent? 70% I have data that shows that, right? Like,
Yes.
Yeah, I can't get you a polling data that shows that like they would support him being a fascist dictator, but they supported everything else in everything but name. Everything but name.
Also, do you think that
It's a-
Trump himself?
It's a giant, look, it's a giant difference to say to sign off on a poll saying I want
way.
Donald Trump to be the president
Wow.
for my lifetime. That's a completely different argument. But go ahead, pondering.
Do you? And you guys can just call me Josiah, by the way. It's my name. It's not Josiah, but Josiah. Yeah,
But
just do
before
that.
you go, I just wanted to let you guys know 10 more minutes and then we'll have closing statements. If you guys would like to go longer, I'll be here.
Yeah, I've got another hour budgeted, so we can chat as far as I'm concerned, as long as you guys want. But
I mean, it's a fascinating talk, so go ahead.
yeah, do you think that Trump himself?
my God.
I was trying to find some evidence here, and it just kind of reminded me. Do you think Trump himself has a good handle on his base? Do you think he understands his base and the Republican Party? Like he's got a good reading of their temperature?
I think that's all Trump does. That he tries
Yeah.
to listen to the base and react mostly.
So when he famously said he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and not lose a single vote, what do you think he meant by that?
Well, it was obviously
That's
a
crazy,
hyperbolic
chat.
joke. I don't think he could literally shoot someone.
And it's completely different because if he is literally going to be president of the
Anything
United
else?
States forever, that's much different than shooting someone on Fifth Avenue.
Wait, do you think that's the most important part of like a dictatorial regime is that he's just going to be president for life?
I want to
Do
go
you
back.
disagree?
Wait. We have to go back to the whole abolishing Congress and all this stuff because the difference here to me is that when you talk to people that are conservatives or Trump supporters that talk about getting rid of the Trump investigations or throwing out the deep state, the idea in their mind, that's my understanding of it, is not that they want to get rid of all these institutions because they want to have a monarchy. Okay, they're not dark Enlightenment Curtis Yarvin types. There's some of them, but they're a tiny minority. What their thought process is that these institutions are corrupt, that they view that the investigations into Trump are corrupt. Now you can disagree with that, and we can disagree about the fact claims of that matter, but to me, that's where we get into this issue of like throwing the fascism labels, that they're not in favor of throwing all these things out to install Trump as a dictator at all. They're just trying to, in their minds, get rid of what they perceive as corruption.
Yeah, and to them, corruption is the state.
And wouldn't that apply to every person who's ever supported any fascist in the history?
You're talking about every single fascist ever. Yeah, of course. I mean, like when you talk about the World War II Hitler thing, but like every fascist says that the state is corrupt, there needs to be a strong leader, you need to overthrow what came before it, and they're the only ones that can lead you to freedom. Like this is every single fascist ever.
Wait, if somebody said in the 30s, "Hey, this guy's going to genocide people and do all this,"
let Sitch respond.
Okay. Yes, obviously, and that's the danger of these sorts of movements and these sorts of rhetoric, is that it can lead you down that pathway because people sense this corruption, which is either real to them or you would disagree with it being real if you're on the other side of things, and they'll support someone, and then that person, obviously, for their own gain, uses their rhetoric, uses that power to become the authoritarian leader. I agree with that. But to me, and this is what we're trying to get at, is just saying these people are fascists or fascist supporters. That's not going to change any of their minds if you're not actually addressing what their concerns are.
None of us disagree with that point. But it's still important to label it as what it is. Like, it's kind of essential to the conversation.
No, wait. This was the central. The thing that got us off on this tangent was, again, what I'm sorry, pondering. What did you say you want us to call?
You can call me Josiah.
Josiah. Okay.
Yeah.
The thing that got us off on this was the tweet that Adam put out, which is that if you're just calling Trump a fascist, okay, what is that? If you don't give any sort of explanation or understanding of why people are voting for Trump, and all you do is you label him a fascist, obviously I think that's going to lead people in your audience to assume that people voting for him are voting for him because they want the fascist, and therefore there's no way to convince those people, there's no way to win those people or in a debate or in a conversation, and the only alternative is through violence.
I agree that it's bad rhetorical strategy, which is I don't do it, but everything you just said is true. People that support Donald Trump do support fascism. They're just too stupid to realize it. That is absolutely a factual matter.
Okay, so at that point, we're just have to defeat these people through physical combat? If
not
we don't
necessarily.
Voting,
I think that our institution still exists quite strongly.
Is calling them stupid a good way to win them over in a political fight?
Generally, no. That's why I don't usually call them stupid.
Okay, well, you just did.
I did now because we're having a frank conversation. I will have a frank conversation. The way that I appeal to Republicans, you call it empathy. I call it treating people like retarded 4-year-olds. That's how I reach a conservative. I've got to be incredibly patient. I have to be incredibly kind. I've got to pretend. I can't even pretend I'm talking to my son. It is condescending because they're retarded.
Exactly what I'm
they don't
talking
believe in
about.
vaccines. They don't believe in climate change. They don't believe in science. They don't believe in academia. Half of them don't think we went to the moon. They don't think that the election. How the else am I supposed to treat these people? Yeah, of course they're retards. But yeah, you treat them like that. You be kind, you be patient, you be empathetic, and you do what you can. But at the end of the day, I believe in the things that I do for good reason. And it's not like I'm going to sit here and pretend that me and a conservative have the same factual standing on every single issue we debate. That's insane. It's literally the party of like science denialism. Half these people think the earth is 6,000 years old and the dinosaurs aren't real. Like, how the supposed to take them seriously in some kind of scientific or factual sense?
There's also situational rhetoric. Like, I guess where I'm confused is like, obviously, if Hassan, Packman, and Cedar are saying, listen, when you're having a conversation with a conservative or conservative voter, instead of trying to appeal to them and apply some situational empathy, whatever, you should just call them fascist or fascistic supporters. Yeah, that would be incredibly stupid. But again, it's about situational rhetoric. These people are also speaking to an audience much like yourself, right? And so it makes sense that in certain contexts they would describe the Republican Party as they just genuinely, bluntly understand it. And then when they're face to face with a Republican voter, they may say something else, or they may couch the language or use different rhetoric. I don't think that, number one, I don't think that's hypocritical. Number two, I don't think that that's anything unique to the left or unusual. I'm so confused. To me, I just don't understand what the issue is here. And I honestly don't think that we disagree too much, because, again, I think Stephen and I also agree that it would be bad to just vilify wholesale Republican voters nonstop. But then it seemed like the goalpost was being moved.
Can I just make one point,
Sure.
and then we can go move to questions?
Well, I need to respond to what Steven said.
Well,
but yes.
you can, but let me just make my point real quick. It won't take long. Destiny, you understand, if you have a conversation about black crime, you're going to have to be very sensitive in that conversation, because you don't want to create a stereotype, a negative stereotype,
Like say
that
legions,
all blacks are criminals. Okay, so I think all I'm saying is, like, your response there, someone could look at and say what Destiny is saying is all conservatives are retarded. That would create a stereotype of conservatives as being retarded, which I think is unhelpful.
I agree. It is unhelpful that they're retarded. I understand what you're saying. Rhetorically,
hold on, let me be clear. Are you saying all conservatives are retarded?
If you support Donald Trump, you either have a mental disability or you need antipsychotics. Yes. If you support Donald Trump, there's something wrong with you. Yeah. Or you're not American to me.
There are plenty of never Trumpers.
That's
there are
crazy,
plenty of
chat.
conservatives that didn't support Trump. There are plenty of
Sure,
conservatives.
and there are
trying to get
probably
him-
some conservatives that probably I would agree with more than especially
Anything else?
progressives these days. That's possible, sure.
Okay, well, you're throwing those conservatives under the bus.
No,
when you
hold
say
on.
all
This whole
conservatives are
time, I've
retarded.
explicitly been talking about Donald Trump supporters. When we're talking about supporting Donald Trump, the actions that he's taking, Republicans broadly are science denialists in policy positions, but I'm sure there are some conservatives out there that I can probably break bread with, or we have like major agreements in a lot of places, but they just like low taxes or something. Sure. Again, none of us disagree with the rhetorical strategy, but at the end of the day, you have to be able to call a spade a spade. The reason why I'm able to make any headway when you talk about black crime is because actually I am willing to own uncomfortable positions. Black people do commit more crime than other people in the United States. And you can play the games of like, oh, it's all institutional bias and it's systemic racism and blah, 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 blah. And like, yeah, those things factor into it. But if you're not willing to, admit that black people do commit more crime than other races in this country, you can't even get the conversation off the ground. And people see me, especially on the right.
You're sensitive about the
people
stereotype.
I'm sensitive, but that doesn't keep me from owning the fact. And people on the right appreciate that. They're like, wow, Destiny says some harsh truths. But then as soon as I start criticizing somebody that doesn't believe in dinosaurs or doesn't think climate change is real, while Phoenix is literally melting into the earth, like, no, I think at some point, I agree, you can't be mean to people, and I try to be nice to people. When I go on shows, I'm nice and I'm kind and blah, blah, blah. But that doesn't mean that you can't ever say like, yeah, listen, if you support Donald Trump, you're kind of supporting a fascist. Maybe that's some behavior that's worth analyzing or worth reflecting on. I just don't say it too often.
Is Stephen obligated?
Well, no, it's just,
let's-
and I
let's
hate to go in the whataboutism range, but just the whole, there's been a lot of science denialism on the right historically. I don't think any side gives a shit about science. People just use science and facts when it supports them, and when it doesn't support them. There's a host of science denialism on the left. The left's position broadly, there's a bunch of people on the left that believe in this blank slate insanity. There's a bunch of people on the left that do not believe in evolution in terms of that evolution has any effect on people's behavior, especially from a gendered perspective. So I don't like the categorization that it's just one side that doesn't believe in science.
There are definitely issues.
Do you think there are any meaningful
2-second
degrees?
response. Yeah, 2 seconds response. There are definitely some
And then
things that the
closing
left gets
statements.
wrong on science denialism or whatever, I'm sure, but it is not even remotely comparable.
That's
they
crazy,
live in different
Chad.
worlds of factual denialism. It's not even close.
Well, I don't agree.
I want to
with
start
that.
with you for
Gotcha.
a closing
Anything
statement
else?
if you're done.
Boo.
We'll start with Adam.
Oh yeah, I mean,
A closing statement and shut up.
I didn't prepare a closing statement. I just, Destiny. it would be
Freestyle,
super
baby.
cool. Destiny, it'd be super cool if, like, you didn't call us a right-wing podcast. We're not a right-wing podcast. I believe in self-ID when it comes to your political orientation, just like your sexual orientation. I think people should be able to pick it for themselves. So I'll just end it there.
Who's next?
Who's next?
Josiah.
Ha ha ha.
Cool, guys. It was nice talking to you guys, Adam and Sitch. You are my favorite right-wing podcast. The conversation was a bit meandering because I feel like politics, it's so complicated. We could probably have a gazillion conversations because there's just so much unpacked there. From my experience with you all, I think you indulge some false equivalences to try to like both sides issues where one side clearly transgresses more. I would love for you to continue to expound on how it's possible to describe the current state of the Republican Party in such a way that doesn't vilify or demean their voting base. So if you, like in the next hour or so, want to unpack that a bit. Look forward to hopefully future conversations where we can unpack the ship more.
Sure, we'd love to have you on our show.
Appreciate it.
Closing statement.
Who?
You.
Destiny.
I don't actually think you guys are a right-wing show. If I had to guess, was this like a recent label, like within the past month that happened?
Oh my God.
I don't think you've been actually very good about it. I think August, your editor, uploaded something calling us a right-wing podcast, and it could have been totally an innocent mistake.
My guess is going to be if he did it, it was probably because everybody was saying that that Anna Kasparian went on a right-wing podcast. Was that the episode that I covered?
No, this was long before the Anna Kasparian thing, but obviously
I have
everyone
no
wants
idea
to
what
call
you're
Anna
talking about.
Kasparian a right-winger now. So
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't know why August
obviously-
said that. He f***ed up.
That's okay. Thank
Gotcha.
you for
Anything
acknowledging
else?
it. So.
Yeah.
And I do we cover a lot of your stuff, Destiny, because I really like the direction you're going. So
Yeah.
a lot of this stuff here, I think we could talk about more. I think you're wrong on about half of it, but
Sure.
yeah.
And is that your finishing statement, Destiny?
No. Yeah.
That is my finishing statement.
Okay, great. And Sitch.
Well, personally, I'm not. I know Adam's more interested in this. I'm literally not interested at all, and I don't really care when people call us right wing that much. I don't really like to go into these conversations where me and Adam are supposed to be like the defenders of conservatives because we're not conservatives, so it puts us in this really bizarre position. I just think that, this came up, and I assumed that this conversation was kind of based around, part of our conversation with Sam Cedar, where I was talking about how he was misinterpreting, an anti-CRT bill to basically throw this label at the state of Oklahoma and state of Florida, saying that they're kind of engaged in this lost causism, trying to bring back fascism and white supremacy, and that he had someone call in a show. Sam Cedar had someone call into a show and was basically saying, I listen to your show a lot, Sam.
No way.
When are we going to start pushing?
Wow.
When is the left, he said, when is the left going to start pushing for violence? And I think that this kind of rhetoric that we see from, these people on both the left and the right is essentially dangerous. And it is pushing people into these realms of advocating for violence. And to me, I think that we should all be trying to calm down and stamp down on that violent rhetoric.
Wonderful. I want to respect everyone's time, and I want to be able to
Oh my
accommodate
God.
for anybody who only planned for a 1-hour panel. So you are free to go. For anybody who is also going to dip, our show tomorrow is just going to be a one-on-one conversation that is not a debate, but might be a debate between Destiny and the comedian Vito. And if you really like,
Wow. Yeah. What's the
If
debate?
it's not a debate. It's just I don't only want
That's
to host
crazy,
debates.
chat.
I kind of would like other more
How
healthy
soy is
forms of
Vito? I think
conversation.
that would be a good question.
How
Gotcha.
soy?
Anything else?
Yeah.
What was it? What's the topic?
There is no topic. It's a conversation.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Introduction. Most likely going to talk about the fire that Vito came under for outing Nick Fuentes' speech that got his content taken down from Rumble.
Oh wow, that's great.
Okay. We had a
Kinda
very
great.
long debate about that with Vito. But I guess we were on Vito's side mostly with Nick Requeda, so.
Anyway.
I have to bring this up, Josiah, because
Go
my
for it.
chat will lose their minds if I don't. They all
it.
want you to know
Oh, here we
that
go.
Joe Biden specifically said that the Republicans are going to put you back in the chains. Okay.
Oh, was that during? Yeah, I think 2012 when he was up against Mitt Romney. I do remember that.
No.
quote.
This was recently, wasn't it?
I thought it. I'm pretty sure the chains. They're going to put you back in chains, y'all. Was during the 2012
That
election.
long ago? I don't know.
I feel like it must have been because if he would have said this recently, I feel like I would have been hearing about this non-stop.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, it was in 2012. So I guess it just gained prominence again recently.
Yeah, the one thing that he said that was he said it's not comparable,
way.
but it's kind of in the ballpark. What did he say?
Wow.
Something like, "You're not if you're not voting for me, you ain't black or something like that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yes, he did say that.
I think he
Which
meant
was
to say
very
that.
clearly a misspeak, right? Like,
right. Well, I thought actually
What was he trying to say?
if you don't vote for me, you're not supporting the black community. That's wait. Do you honestly think that he said if you don't support me, you're not black? Like you're going to turn
No.
white?
I interpreted. No. I'm assuming he meant it the way you said, Destiny. But I still think the implication is the same.
my
See,
God.
I thought he meant he was referring to, like, according to polling, he had the black vote locked up. Like, basically, if somebody's not voting for Joe Biden, somebody's voting for Donald Trump and Joe Biden, they're probably white and not black. That's what I thought he meant.
No, I think it's the way Steven. I mean, I interpret the way Steven interpreted. But
Gotcha.
I'm the Biden whisperer, so you know.
Is
There you go.
the way Stephen interpreted it by referring to black people who don't vote for him as like a race
That's
traitor?
crazy, chat.
I mean, I think you can take that implication. Yeah.
Wow, leave it to Cherry to bring up the nice.
Gotcha.
You're welcome.
Anything
What does that
else?
mean? Is Cherry the race trader?
No, I voted for Biden. I'm black.
Okay, that's good.
Hey,
That's good to know. You're still black.
Sitch, you
Yeah,
might be
I'm gonna look
black
that
now.
up. Oh, he said it's to Charlemagne the God, apparently at the Breakfast Club.
Would anyone be opposed if I allow Straighterade to join in?
Go for it.
Who?
Straight
Bring
away.
her in,
Straighterade.
Aaron.
I mean,
Yeah,
are
keep
we are we dipping or
No, it's.
I don't know. What do you want to do? Okay. Sitch and I are like legally married,
Ha, ha,
so
ha, ha.
I gotta run it by you.
Well, he's just right off camera, isn't he? I thought I heard an echo in your mic.
So.
I watched a lot of your coverage recently, Adam, obviously for this, to sort of be able to chime in with some.
Did you
knowledge
really?
of
Oh,
your
nice.
Positions. Yeah, it's you guys do long fucking shows, okay? Let me tell
Yeah,
you.
that's why I'm amazed when anyone says they watch any of our content.
Like, when you say long shows, like, what are you guys averaging? Just I don't stream, but like, are you talking
9
like?
hours?
I mean, we did
Sometimes
12
longer.
hours on Sunday, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
No way.
But
Wow.
I did catch you saying that you sort of empathize is going to be my word, but you understand progressive pundits almost viewing conservatives as what they're doing, like a step towards fascism, especially after January 6th. But you kind of stepped away from that belief here. Is there a reason?
what do you
Adam
mean?
said this, or I said that?
No, I are you talking about me saying
Oh my
that
God.
the
Like,
progressives
understanding-
disparaging Trump are going to like get us more towards fascism? Like, is that what you're thinking I'm saying?
I think it was in reference to viewing any sort of crisis for concern and sort of understanding, well, if you take January 6th into consideration, I could understand
That's
if they
crazy,
felt
chat.
like there was a fascist threat.
Well, no, I
Is what you
do.
said.
Look, I do think Sam
Gotcha.
Cedars of the
Anything
world
else?
can point to January 6th and say that we're teetering on the edge of fascism, and it gives it some kind of credibility. Sitch disputes that point by saying, "Look, it was just a riot," and
That's not what I said.
Okay, go ahead. You
No, I said that even though Trump tried to do it, no one else in a position of power went along with it. Pence didn't go
Well, I
along
was
with
gonna
it.
say
State
that
legislators
part
didn't
right
go
after.
along with it. Yeah.
I think
didn't
the
say just
issue
it's just a
isn't-
riot.
The scary part isn't that Trump tried to do it and the institutions held. That's good.
No, I listen. No. I agree
No,
with you. I'm
great,
just saying why
yes,
I wouldn't
no, that's
characterize
what
it
we're in
as
favor of.
teetering on the edge of fascism.
Well, but the teetering part is probably the fact that he has
Ha, ha, ha.
widespread support among the American people that
Yeah,
they
maybe-
support him.
Can I
That's
ask you a question?
Wait. To be clear, in our conversation with Sam Cedar, none of us, when he made these comments and that I was responding to, where he was talking about teetering on the edge of fascism, or these are the incremental steps to fascism, none of this was about January 6th or Donald Trump. It was all about the anti-CRT bills, and that's what the conversation was about. And I assume that no one here would agree that the anti-CRT bills are on the steps to fascism.
no, that's cringe.
Okay.
Okay,
I would
good.
have
See,
to
but
dig
that's
deeper
kind of
before.
the hyperbolic rhetoric that I'm talking about.
Yeah, but Sam Cedar's cringe, so I mean.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
No way.
Look, I have a
Wow.
question, Destiny. So and this is obviously my gut intuition, but I think that if the mainstream media and the news pundits were covering the Trump indictments just from like a neutral perspective, and they weren't throwing in all of these jabs about how stupid Trump is and how corrupt Trump is, which I think are very true, but I think the results of including
Oh my
all of
God.
those jabs and not covering it neutrally brings a lot of support to Trump that wouldn't be there if they just covered it neutrally. So one of my fears is that all of these disparaging comments that they're making against Trump are making his poll numbers go up. He will be reelected, when we could avoid all that if we just had a more neutral news environment.
I'm not
That's
entirely
crazy,
sure
chat.
that I buy the premise that it's because of like certain asides and jabs that are made. And by the way, I would need to know who,
Gotcha.
because
Anything
like
else?
obviously the mainstream news, like you've got the actual journalists, and then you have like, you know, pundits and commentators too, kind of like how Fox News says, you know, we're straight news at this time, we're op-ed at the other times. So I would need to know who's making the jabs, what kind of jabs have been made. But I think the fact that the indictments are coming are what's radicalizing Trump's base, not like snide comments made by certain journalists in the media.
I disagree, obviously. So,
Well, you think that if like Jake Tapper offered, like he didn't smile at all, just robotically says, you know, Donald Trump has been indicted for the second time, this time for 4 charges, conspiracy to defraud, yada yada, and then just cut to the weather or something like that, that would reduce like or just eliminate the support that he's getting after the indictments?
I think it would. I think it would reduce it. Yeah, quite a bit.
Well, I'm going to
That's
ask
fine,
you
too.
what you asked Steven earlier about I want proof, because I would love to see that, because
Well,
if that's
look,
the case, then I'd write a letter. I'd at Jake Tapper. I would co-sign it with you. I'd be like, Jake, shut the fuck up. If this is all it takes to calm the Republicans down and get them on board with the indictments, absolutely.
I began
No
this
way.
conversation by saying it was
Wow.
my gut intuition and asking you what your gut intuition was, because I don't have a poll. So obviously.
Oh, well, my gut intuition, I don't know about Stevens, is just that they support him come hell or high water. And when he said I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and not lose a single vote, was that hyperbolic? Sure, he would probably lose a few, but I think at this
The
point...
only voter he'd lose is if he shot a conservative. Trump could literally fuck a kid on Fifth Avenue, and I don't think his voter base would not support him. I don't know if covering these indictments
Oh my
in a
Would he do it and then
slightly
shoot
different
him?
way, he'd shoot him with something. I don't know if like that would be the difference between people taking these seriously or not. People that are supporting Trump are a little bit lost to the world right now. I think they probably need quite a bit of compassion, quite a bit of time, and probably another conservative person to champion in the meantime. And that other conservative person hasn't come up yet. But like Trump supporters are kind of deranged. So I mean,
That's crazy, chat.
So, well, I do think that a lot of people support Trump because they do view that
Gotcha.
these
Anything
institutions
else?
are so inherently corrupt. And I do think that the way that they're reported on the Trump indictment essentially reinforces in their minds that these things are corrupt. So I do think it would help. I don't know
but
if it'll
it's
alleviate
an all
completely, but it would
roads.
definitely
It's
help.
all roads lead to Rome with these guys. Literally every single thing that could happen supports Trump. If they would have moved quickly on them, then it would have been evidence of corruption. If they move slowly on them, it's evidence of corruption because they don't
I
have
was talking
enough
about
evidence.
the reporting. I wasn't talking about the actual indictments themselves.
I feel like almost anything can be swung in terms of like, you know, if they don't call them names and they're not reporting enough on it, they're not giving it enough airtime, you're trying to bury it under the rug. Like it feels like every single thing that you could do is going to be spun in some way when it comes to when it comes to the indictments at least.
I mean, so you can make that argument, I guess. I just disagree. But I was curious because, so we've been talking a lot about, you know, the threat of authoritarianism or fascism with Trump. You know, do you think how do you think that relates at all to the fact that socialism has become so widely popular to the younger generation on the left, so much so that we see it seems like almost every left-wing large commentator in politics on the internet is a socialist of some kind. Do you think that's going to become a threat in the future? in
I think they're
America?
cringe. I think we're slowly getting away from it, but we'll see.
No
Who knows?
way.
My instincts are we're kind of moving
Wow.
away from that. I feel like a lot of that progressive shit has lost a lot of steam as they've lost support in Congress, as the members in Congress have become a little bit less progressive. As I feel like online, I feel like these people are drying up a little bit. Like I look like Hassan's popularity is waning a bit. I don't know if the majority report is necessarily as popular. I'll have to go check their views. It's hard because the YouTube shorts thing.
Vosh had 10K concurrence earlier today.
That's great, but his channel has been like on a slow, steady death spiral. Like if you look at his monthly viewership, I think the last month, because I still check his analytics, was the
Oh my
third lowest
God.
month he's had in the past 3
Why are
years.
you checking his analytics?
Because it's my job to know where politicians or political pundits
Yeah,
are
I'm
in this
stoked
space.
you
I
are.
need to know.
Like
Because
Vosh.
they are going to reunite. That's
This
in
is
the
like
making.
good news to me,
It's good. Well,
Destiny.
it's good to know like who's
Keep
popular,
telling
who's
me
not
about
popular.
Vosh's analytics.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm actually going to respond to that, and I'm going to pull an Adam and Sitch and say, okay, if you're citing polling data which indicates that notions like, you know, socialism
That's
are much
crazy,
more popular
chat.
among America's youth, I'm going to blame that actually on capitalism and the failures of capitalism with younger generations.
Gotcha.
So
Anything
maybe
else?
it's somewhat kind of like how I was watching your interview like on Sunday, or the debate that you all had with Kyle Kalinske and Crystal Ball about woke versus anti-woke. And during the conversation, you said something to the effect of, if there's like any authoritarian impulse on the anti-woke side of the debate, it's really, number one, it's a fringe reaction, and number two, it's also a reaction to the authoritarian woke. So it's kind of, you didn't say justified, but that it's understandable. You gave it a bit, you were grading it on a curve. So I'm going to do that with socialism.
I'm not grading
If
it on
socialism,
a curve. I hate
well, hang on, let me finish the sentence. If socialism is popular now, perhaps that is the failure of capitalism and people who support capitalism to make a persuasive case to the next generation that, hey, capitalism won't fuck you over. And maybe you should expect more out of capitalism.
I agree with you.
Right. So, first of all, I wasn't justifying anything when we were talking to Kyle Crystal. I was just explaining the process because I agree with what you're saying. And I think part of the problem is because I always kind of credit a lot of the extremism in America starting from the housing crash and people losing faith in the system, especially when they didn't see anyone was punished for it, and kind of losing faith in the American dream at that point. And then obviously with socialism, it's kind of spread, from that, and also when Bernie Sanders lost the primary and all that stuff, and all the conspiracy theories that kind of came up around it. But the issue is that it seems like to me the left has basically a lot of people on the left, not broadly, a lot of people on the left have adopted this idea that capitalism can only exist in this sort of neoliberal Reaganomics format, as opposed to saying, well, let's go back to sort of this, Reagan era, 1940s through 1970s kind of liberal capitalist economic structure where labor had a significantly more power. We don't have to go full commie, essentially.
Sure, but that would require getting conservatives and Republicans out of power because, of course, the period you're talking about.
But I'm just talking about the messaging for pundits online from the left. I mean, and I hope that what Destiny's saying is correct. That I do think wokeness has kind of reached its peak and it is now waning. People are getting tired of it, and I hope the same is true for the overt socialists that are basically spreading this message and that this will go down over time. I am concerned that it won't. It's just that it's the younger generation basically is saturated by all this stuff, and that once they get into more voting ages, we'll start to see this stuff manifest again in 10 or 15 years.
And I do blame the right for categorizing the welfare state as socialism. The welfare state was literally designed to fight socialism, and I think when the right does that, it's terrible. Like, it does incentivize people to turn to socialism. Sure, well, because they don't see it as a bad thing.
Well, yeah, you need only look at the, accepted popularity. It's broadly bipartisan of like Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. These were socialist programs, condemned at the time by conservatives of their age. They were passed regardless, either with enough bipartisan support or sufficient partisan support to get through the conservatives. And now generations later, most conservatives who are on Medicare and Medicaid and benefit from Social Security are like, oh shit, that socialist stuff's pretty cool.
We kind of stumbled into having a big right-wing audience, and I constantly think I'm in favor of things like UBI. I think, how do I convince these people that UBI is something that would be good for the country?
No way.
And they tell me their arguments against it, whatnot, and I try to dissect those arguments. But just offending them over little things is not going to get us in that direction. And I do think a lot of people on the left, they have this idea that they don't need conservative support. They can belittle them, and they can achieve the things that they want to achieve politically. And I fundamentally disagree with that assessment. Sooner or later, this has to become an engagement of ideas by people that respect one another, so we can get big things done.
Adam, why do you think that I don't think you just stumbled into like a right-wing audience? Like, the choices that you make with regards to like the topics that you cover are necessarily going to court that audience. Wouldn't you agree?
Not necessarily, because I mean, like I said, I think we've been wrongly mischaracterized.
That's crazy,
and right-wingers have come to our audience, not, thinking we were a right-wing podcast, but then they stick around because we don't.
Anything else?
Like, we're sensitive to not calling them retards all day long. So I think that makes them stick around.
Just to be clear, Aaron is probably more of a woke progressive than Josiah, so I apologize.
Even more than that, Cherry. Don't underplay it. Don't downplay
it. Well, you should.
Yeah, you all brace yourselves. Brace yourselves. Yeah.
But I guess I just get like, Adam, how are you not contributing to that polarization then? Just, you're already saying that just naturally, like, even if I grant you that organically you've noticed that you have attracted a right-wing audience by virtue of like your messaging, what you've covered and all of that, you're like, well, I've just happened to attract that because that's what I cover. Then like, kind of naturally the same thing will happen with like liberal or left leaning pundits also, you know, like they don't even have to vilify the other side. You're going to attract people that kind of already agree with you, you know.
I don't think the issue is attracting the audience, because when last time we did a poll, I think it was something like 60% of our audience identified as right wing and 40% left wing, or something to that effect. And attracting the audience isn't the problem. I think, you know, people generally say that YouTubers radicalize their audience, and I think it's the opposite. I think the audience radicalizes the YouTubers. And what happens is once they attract these audiences, they start to basically lean into it more and more and more to grow larger and larger and larger. And
audience capture. Yeah.
Right, the audience capture. I think that's what kind of radicalizes people, because it seems like when you look at most of these pundits, when you go back to their older stuff, everyone kind of starts off significantly more moderate and then kind of becomes more extreme over time. And I don't think that's just a coincidence. And so for us, we do have a lot of right-wingers watch us because we're very anti-woke. Though when we talk about it, I mean, we always try to talk about it, and I'm always very careful to talk about it in terms of saying this is not the left broadly, this is a specific thing, what is it, how is it anti-liberal, and we need to go back to liberal values that both the left and the right existed in America, for hundreds of years.
That's crazy,
well,
chat.
Why do you feel like it's incumbent upon liberal and left-leaning commenters to appeal to conservatives, but you don't seem to be interested in appealing to like socialists or people who are moving further away from like liberalism to progressivism and like further left?
Because, it's an interesting question. I'm just not interested in I consider those very extreme positions. I'm not sure I'm going to be very persuasive to them, and I'm kind of not interested in trying to persuade them. I mean, I'm not saying no one has to do anything they don't want to do.
Well, and I want to follow up on Aaron's question when she's done.
I think like you're outlining why, if you're asking like why is it that all of these like liberal and left-leaning commentators are becoming further radicalized and stuff like that, is because things are polarized enough that they don't actually feel that there's any point in reaching out to the other side, because they don't even feel like they're amenable to them. So they just pander to their audience, and then it just becomes a negative feedback loop, and the audiences play off the creator plays off the audience, and both are getting, further dug into their side. Because you've already admitted like, well, what's the point of reaching out to them, because they just believe whatever they want to believe?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying, we're not reaching out to the very far right either. I mean, if there's someone who's very far right or someone who's very far left that wants to listen to us, I mean, that's fine. We try not to, even though we're very anti-socialist.
No way.
I'm not. Wow. We're not like, oh, these people are all evil and they want to just destroy everyone, blah, blah, blah.
I think your content is already appealing to far right people. Like Sargon of Akkad was in your audience.
Have you ever listened to a single time Carl has been on our show?
No, I only listened. I listened to your conversation with Anna Kasparian, and I saw that he was in the chat.
I don't think there's been a single time Carl's ever come on our show that hasn't been us arguing about something like pretty angrily for 3 hours about some random topic.
I doubt that, but I'm saying that like he's amenable enough to your like content, and do you really just think it's because you're like nice to conservatives, or?
Well, no, it's because number one, I think it is that. Number two, I think it's because we do talk a lot about trying to criticize woke stuff, which obviously he likes, and obviously people on the right like, even if they're further right than we are.
Is Destiny a white nationalist because he's talked to Nick Fuentes?
Gotcha.
I never said that you were a white.
Well, I'm just asking.
You guys were like far right or whatever.
Because was waiting for that.
You said that you don't pander, you don't attract people who are far right in your audience, and I gave you an example of somebody who was in your audience who is far right, and watching to you in spite of the fact that you find that you're closer to the center.
So first of all, I don't want to throw. I don't know how Carl, even though we basically argue whenever he comes on, I'm not going to throw the far right label because I don't know what the implications of that mean when you say it. Okay, I don't think Carl. To my knowledge, I don't think.
Right? When he
to my knowledge, I do. To my knowledge, I do not believe that Carl is a white nationalist or anything, or racist or anything like that. Okay, number one. Number two, I didn't say that we don't have people that are far right that watch us. I'm saying we're not reaching out to extremists on either side. We're not Daryl Davis. We're not trying to like turn everyone over this. I was just addressing your question about that specific thing when you said, well, why aren't you trying to turn socialists over to your side?
Well, and on that subject, I am curious because, again, I've watched some of your content. Like, I've watched the Kyle Kalinski's Crystal Ball one. I've watched, I think you had one with President Sunday. I watched that. Rob Noor, I watched some of that. So I didn't know that, but I don't watch the stream, so I didn't know that you guys were like a comedy show. I thought it was virtually exclusively
I'm
political
gonna be honest.
commentary.
I didn't know that either.
Okay,
Yeah.
Cherry was joking. That's
She was talking about. Oh, god damn it,
It's
Cherry. Well
it's
done.
one of the memes of their shows. Sorry.
Gotcha.
Yes, thank you, Cherry.
Gotcha.
So
You're welcome.
let me ask you, what is? I assume you all would consider yourself like you're not just journalists, right? So you have an opinion, you have a stance, you're trying to persuade people. Mm-hmm. Here's what I'm trying to wrap my head around. So you describe yourselves as centrists. I've gotten different answers if it's right-wing centrist or left-wing centrist, but you're centrist. You have an audience that you say in terms of self-identification is at least 60% right-wing. Mm-hmm. What's your goal with them? Are you trying to reinforce their views? Or if you are left-leaning centrist, are you trying to get them closer to the left? I'd like to know what your goals are and how you go about it.
According to Destiny, they're all retarded. So why would we want to reinforce
That's crazy,
that?
chat.
Obviously, we're trying to win them over to our perspective.
And your perspective.
Look,
Gotcha.
I'm only
Anything
kidding
else?
about the retard thing. I think there is a giant miscommunication that goes on between progressives and conservatives. I view conservatives as kind of the defense of society, and I view progressives as kind of the offense. And we need to have this like yin and yang political process to kind of develop new policies. We can't stagnate, and we can't change things willy-nilly without risking society. So I do think the two work together, or should work together.
I think that sounds great on paper or in like an Aaron Sorkin TV show like The West Wing, but in terms of contemporary politics, I don't think it maps on well, because I would say collectively the GOP in terms of its leadership,
you don't see any value in conservatives though. Like you see zero value in conservatives.
When did I say that? See, there you go.
That you have said.
Do you?
Okay, tell us.
Do you see
the
value
value in conservatives?
in conservative?
Well, I think conservatism is relative, right? So compared to other progressives, like when
Look, he's already.
when Aaron popped
I'll
in.
answer it. I don't.
No.
I don't find value in any conservative values.
Look, she said.
It really
She
depends.
says it. Right there. Are conservatives all racist? All greedy racists?
See,
I
that's what I'm
didn't say
saying.
that they were greedy racists. I said I don't agree with conservative
Well,
ideas.
no, he asked. He wasn't accusing. He was asking if you think that.
Yeah, I'm asking you. Are you using the stereotype? Are all conservatives greedy racists?
Nope.
Okay, good.
But there's no value to them.
What do you what do you mean by conservative? Are you talking Republican in its current iteration?
We're asking you.
Do I think that?
Oh
okay,
my God.
I would say that, for example, like economics, I would say that capitalism or defensive capitalism is broadly associated with conservatism. I consider myself a sock dem, so I don't want a socialist economy. So yes, I would say that conservatives, in theory, bring something to the table in at least some sort of defense of capitalism. But so I don't want to take conservatives out of the equation altogether. I'm talking about the GOP as it currently stands, their political proxies in the political process here in the United States.
Gotcha. Anything
Well,
else?
I don't think the GOP and conservatives are like a one-for-one.
I agree.
So
100%.
I'm talking philosophically about conservatives and philosophically about progressives.
Well, you said a tweet that started all of this panel said conservative voters specifically, so I assumed you were talking about GOP voters. Right?
Well,
or no?
the tweet we were, or he was, I assume. But for the question, he was not. He was asking broadly, philosophically, do you think conservatism has a place?
And it also, I know you might not like that answer, but it's, again, there is a relativity associated with, we were talking about labels in this respect earlier. There are some positions on which I would be considered conservative relative to other progressives. So no, again, I don't want to just like eliminate all conservatives from the political equation. Now, I will tell you, I would love to politically neutralize the Republican Party. If I could take every Republican out of elected office, like if they were no longer holding elected office, I think the country would be in a better place. Because I think the GOP,
a one-party state.
If the alternative is the GOP as it currently stands, sure. Because
we can have two parties. We can have a left-wing party and then a further left-wing party.
Because within the within the Democratic
state.
Wait a minute. Because within the Democratic Party, you have a wide range of ideology. You have Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema on one side, and then you have AOC and Bernie Sanders on the other. There is a range of ideology there.
If you had a football team that had had a offense and a further offense, do you think that would be a good?
I've got a better one.
Team?
Listen, I don't watch football. I don't pay attention to it.
Oh
How
my
about a
God.
three-legged race? I'd rather have a partner in a three-legged race that doesn't just fall to the ground and hug my leg and keep me from crossing the finish line.
Look, I
Oh,
think.
wait. You brought up Joe Manchin and Christian Cinema, and I don't think that makes sense, because if there were no Republicans, then Joe Manchin and Christian Cinema would have no power. They only have power as being a split vote.
Well, no.
Under your
That's
way,
crazy,
the
Chad.
far left would just gain more and more and more power if there's no balance to it.
Well, no, because
Gotcha.
conservative
Anything
voters
else?
would exist. They would just. What I'm saying is that they would not be the hinge point on which legislation lives and dies. Of course not. I don't want them to be. I think that if you have conservative Democrats in the party, I'm sure that they bring some value to the equation. I don't know what specific policy I would support, but they would still have a place there. They just wouldn't be the threshold. Right now, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema are the altar on which progressive legislation lives or dies, and it usually dies.
Okay, if you could snap your finger and make every Republican politician, every Republican voter, change to become a Democrat and a Democrat voter, do you think that would have a better outcome overall?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
By orders of magnitude. If you look at where the average Republican is at this point, they're not like your bog standard conservative or like neocon of like the Bush era. They have moved further right significantly when it comes to immigration, when it comes to like vaccines, and like COVID are perfect examples of this, in my opinion, where they are just way to the right of the like average American and average voter.
I feel like most Democrats would have said that they in favor of the Thanos
No
snap
way.
hypothesis or hypothetical.
Wow.
They would have agreed with that during Bush. I mean, Bush was called like a war criminal and Hitler and all these things too. So I don't know if that would have made a difference.
That's entirely possible. Do you not? I guess with the benefit of hindsight, do you think that it could have been an overreaction during the Bush era and justified in the Trump
Of course,
era?
everything's relative. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So here's my thing. If we're going to talk about the merits of the GOP as a party, what are they?
Oh my God.
Because I just see negative virtually all the way around and what positives they do bring to the table as a political party could be replicated by a bigger Democratic Party. What does the GOP bring to the table?
Well, this is why when Adam originally asked the question, he meant conservatism as a philosophy, because I do think that conservatism as a philosophy is vitally important to America.
That's crazy, Chad.
Because I think part of the problem is that people assume that their personal philosophy and their government philosophy are going to be the same
Anything else?
thing. When we know this, and this is another example of left kind of science and nihilism, it's known, it's just something that's psychologically studied and known, that if you have the individual motivation and individual worldview of the kind of pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality, that will provide you with better life outcomes. And yet, that is like not something that we want to be taught anymore to people, that you shouldn't have that attitude. And that is not wanting to be taught, because the perception is, well, if you teach that on an individual level, people are going to then put that on a federal government level, and they're doing that because they want to cut funding, because they don't want to pay taxes, because blah, 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 they don't want to help minorities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, and that's why I think that, again, in terms of why I would be fine just politically neutralizing the Republican Party, but I'm not really interested in alienating conservatives as a whole. I do think they have a place, and again, conservatism is relative. I think it's entirely possible to justify a conservative philosophy on an individual basis, like you said, the pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality. That's a terrible piece of legislation. Like, that's a terrible basis for legislation. You need a robust, social safety net and welfare state. But I think it's probably a great ethic to try to instill in somebody on an individual basis that you should try to master your environment, and perhaps not just assume that you will have some sort of support, even if that support should exist by your society or your government. But for me, and I think this is also one of the things where you and I disagree on, or the three of us disagree on, Adam and Sitch, is I'm more interested in the political proxy of conservatism in the United States, the Republican Party, because they're the ones who actually wield power. And I also think that it's a feedback loop. I don't think that Republican politicians are just being radicalized by a base. I think they also radicalize their base, and it just feeds back and forth. And I hear you talk a lot about conservative culture and culture in general. I'd like to know where you stand on Republican politicians,
That's crazy,
Republican leaders, people who actually wield power, and not just people on Twitter or whatever.
Gotcha.
So could
Anything
you
else?
expound what your thoughts are on the GOP?
Well, so to be clear, we primarily, I would say, talk about cultural issues on our show overall. I mean, we don't even spend that much time talking about Democrat politicians individually, of those things. You know, but in terms of specific Republican politicians, you know, I'm from Florida, and I remember at first.
Excuse me.
At first, I remember at first.
Yeah, Stevens there. That's exact. It's not even DeSantis. It's the fact that Stevens there too. I'm
there.
Really
You
sorry.
go. I'm in the vicinity. But no, because at first I was like, oh, I was happy with, you know, DeSantis doing like a lot of the anti-woke stuff, the anti-CRT stuff,
Ha.
and things of that nature. But then, you know, when he went after Disney, I was like, oh, you know, to me this is a pretty egregious use of anti-free speech for Disney, just because they said that they don't want to support and they want to repeal the parental rights education bill, that he would then try to leverage his political power against him. So I kind of lost a lot of respect for DeSantis at that moment.
So getting back to Stevens, you know, Stephen earlier used the F word, the fascist word. Do you think that the GOP has a fascistic strain to it?
I think everyone has an
No way.
authoritarian strain.
Wow.
Do you think?
And I think that's going to manifest through, if you mean fascism, like actually the definition of fascism, then obviously that will manifest in the right through fascism, and on the left it'll manifest through usually some kind of authoritarian communism.
Okay, well then.
Yes. Really quick. That is a yes. You think that there are fascist elements of the GOP, but you're just also saying the GOP too and the Democrats.
I think there are authoritarian elements in all people and all parties that will always trying to manifest themselves, and then we have to fight back against them.
Do you think?
Okay, who does it worse though?
Yes.
Do you think the Democrats do it worse, or do you think the Republicans do it worse?
Right now?
Right now.
I think there's a strong argument you could say that because of all the Trump stuff, that stuff is more at least showing up in government itself. Where I think in the left it's more showing up in culture and in institutional bias.
That's crazy, chat.
Okay, so wouldn't
non-governmental institutional
I think
bias.
I agree with you. So I would argue that is a more like
Anything
serious
else?
and egregious concern. That like you have a party that is trying to ensconce fascistic policies into law versus, you know, social disagreements with
What is
like
the fascistic policy that they're implementing?
Oh my God, where do we even start with the GOP?
Well, no, because I think we're talking about very different things.
A border wall. In my opinion, like
To a
Trump's,
dog
like
pile?
Trump's.
I don't want
wall
to
is
turn this into a
fascism?
dog pile, but I also have a lawyer that would like to join. You let me know if
Pisco?
you're
No, tell him to go away.
okay.
Damn.
No, I'm
Jeez.
I'm only kidding. Only kidding. Look, Pisco.
Can you help
welcome.
him? Are we okay with
Yeah,
that?
sure. Look, yeah, Pisco's
Pisco
welcome.
can go on. Wait, why do you think the border wall is an example of fascism?
Well, I think Trump like mobilized his base and encouraged people to vote for him using explicitly fascistic rhetoric, kind of this whole us versus them. We need to keep Mexicans out of this country. They're bringing over drugs. They're bringing over rapists. The Muslim ban, like a lot of it was the stoking of like xenophobia. And we know that rhetoric is really what drives voters to make their decisions on the candidates that they support. It's not really going to be policy. But Trump was able to kind of like play a two-pronged attack. Like the only policy that Trump really had and like staked his claim on in 2016 was stoking racism, xenophobia to get people to vote for him for this border wall.
I would
And
also.
at that point, like I live in South Texas, and there are people here, people who voted for Trump, who are now suing the Trump administration because their homes were like their property is trying to be eminent domain, eminent domain or whatever, to build a border wall.
Yeah, so I think
Oh my God.
But so the way that I think conceptualize it right is that the right or that conservatives generally view things as the threat to society is coming from an external source coming in to infiltrate the society and then degenerate it from within. That's kind of how like the right-wing moral framework works, and the left has the opposite framework, where they believe that all of the problems from society come from pre-existing systems and traditions, and so that there's all this like malevolence already built into wherever they are. So they have to go outside to find new ideas, or they have to expel sort of like the corruption from within. And so it's interesting because when you say like, oh, Trump was pushing this very us versus them mentality, I don't disagree with that. But you don't notice it because it's invisible to you that was also the us versus them is just the narrative that the left is pushing. It's just not doing it from a country standpoint. It's saying, oh, these racists or these Republicans, they're the them, and you're the us.
What about like Trump's aspirations in 2024 to like strip checks and balances, for example? So he wants to.
No, I'm just curious if Straighter Aid sees what I'm saying before we move on.
Sure.
I mean, I don't think it's authoritarianism or fascistic of like Democrats or liberal pundits to be criticizing the other party in this country and like conservative voters in the same way, like because they're basing that off of like not something that's not an immutable characteristic. It's not an immutable characteristic to be a conservative. Those are policy choices and people making up their minds to support certain candidates and make certain decisions and their actions, which all have consequences, as opposed to what you're talking about, which is people criticizing like cultural preferences and aesthetics. I find these to be very different and one to be a lot more serious than the other, because the president of the United States is trying to stoke animosity on things that people like on a basis that people can't change, as opposed to ideas.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I obviously stoking fear and hatred against people for their immutable characteristics, I agree, is really bad. At the end of the day, if it's a political party or an ideology versus immutable characteristics, I don't think it matters. It's not like those people are going to change their political affiliation, on a dime. It's not really what we see in the way it manifests.
I'm curious about that. How do you mean?
Well, no, because so I'm sure you've seen that really stupid centrist meme where it's like you have the KKK on one side and you have the civil rights on the other side, and you have the person saying compromise.
That's crazy, chat.
Adam retweeted that the other day and said it was based, if I remember correctly.
No, he tweeted my version.
Gotcha. Anything else?
Which is where on one side you have the people that are the
Look at
KKK.
this guy. He's gunning for me, Sitch.
The other side is the people that have the little Antifa hoods on them, and they're saying we want to destroy liberalism, or it says we want to destroy liberalism and capitalism. And people's response to this, I thought, were really stupid, which is saying, how can you compare those two things? They want to kill people that are black, and they want to kill people based on or they want to kill an ideology. And it's like, how many wars in human history are fought over ideology?
3.
Okay, World War II was fought over ideology. The idea that you're going to separate ideology from being a less of an egregious thing to go after people over than their race, I just completely disagree with.
Okay, let's chill. Okay, World War II, Japan, Germany, it was not just an ideology. There was a lot of racial shit and racial superiority baked into this as well, okay?
Well, no, that's true, but obviously the ideology was fascism versus non-fascism, right?
No. Well, yeah, I mean, that was an ideology, but a lot of it was also built on literal racial superiority, right?
Okay, that's okay, fair enough. So maybe I should, instead of using World War II, I should use, all the conflict that was going on in the Cold War, which was definitely based around socialism versus liberalism.
Yeah, I don't think it's fascist of the left to criticize an ideology that baked within it is racist or anti-Semitic ideas.
But the other thing.
Wait. Do you think liberalism has baked within it racism and anti-Semitism?
No, but I'm talking about if we're Stephen just brought up how World War II had a lot of racial animosity undergirding it, and so if you're saying that
well, I acknowledge that was a bad example, and then we moved to the Cold War to talk about how the dangers of just saying that you can attack people for their ideology.
I know, but some ideologies are worth attacking.
That may be.
I agree.
That could definitely be. I don't disagree with that.
Yeah,
so what about the? Okay, so she gave the example of the border wall. Obviously, you can test that, or at least you have some objections.
Do you agree that that's an example of fascism?
To me, it's not the one that I would go with. To me,
that's crazy.
But do you think it's an example of fascism?
Trump wanting to build a border wall?
Yes.
I think you probably make the argument.
Gotcha.
Again, it's not one that I think you
can tell me your opinion.
I think you could make that argument from 2 prongs. One was that it was very clearly built on racial and xenophobic lines. Obviously, that should be indisputable. We can dispute if you want. And then 2 was the fact that he couldn't find popular support anywhere for it, so he mobilized the military to do it under this broad deference of protecting the United States from foreign
enemies. To declare a state of number one, threatened to claim a state of emergency, and then I think he threatened to impound congressional funds, if I remember correctly.
I think those things are a little bit fascistic, because that's literally would you say that's an authoritarian movement? It's weird to say executive action authoritarian, but he did it as the president in the defiance of Congress, and then did it for racial or xenophobic reasons. That's pretty fascistic.
Hold on.
Yes,
what if
80%
of the people who want a border wall want it for economic reasons? Maybe let's say hypothetically they're all marginalized people, they're all black, and 20% of the people want it for fascistic, racist reasons because they want to keep the brown people out. You got an 80-20 split. Is it still fascist?
I'm just saying the way
Okay.
that Donald Trump went about it.
Yeah, I think Aaron
the other
was-
branches of government, and then he did it.
No way.
And then he did it motivated for xenophobic reasons. Trump didn't say that we need to stop these Mexicans from coming in because they're taking all our jobs. He said he wanted to get rid of rapists, thieves, and murders, and he stoked gang things. MS-13. And then he wanted to ban the Muslims. And then he wanted to ban.
answering the question. Look, you're not.
Oh, he did. He mentioned mixed motive, and he's talking about the particular motive of Donald Trump, and that would be what he would consider, not necessarily the motive of other people supporting it.
I'm asking you for the motive of the populace because I think that's more important.
Oh my God.
But if you're analyzing a particular policy action, doesn't
I mean, I'm going to go by what Donald Trump says.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Look,
no, it doesn't matter what the so.
Hold on, Pete. So let me just make it. Let me just make it clear here. Like 100% of the people who want the policy, they all want the policy for different conflicting reasons. That's always the way policy works.
That's crazy.
80% of the people want it for non-xenophobic reasons, and 20% of the people want it for xenophobic reasons. That makes 100% of the people that want the policy. I don't think it's fair to call a policy fascist. If 80% of the people who want it for economic reasons.
They were willing to overlook
I think
a
what
lot of
Stephen gave you was
for it.
I think what Stephen gave you was a totality of circumstances analysis where he's talking about how the policy
Trump's motivation was.
How the policy was.
Listen,
let's just be clear about what he said.
Wait, hold on. Wait.
I'll hold everyone on. Please. Okay, what do you want to hold on for? I was moderating.
You're a moderator. Who's holding
on? I know. I moderated
Oh.
over Destiny, so he doesn't out to me. But go ahead, Destiny.
Okay, yeah, real quick, because I don't need anybody to say what I'm saying. I'm saying, yeah, I'm looking at the totality of circumstances. You can argue, what if 80% want it for one reason, 20% want it for another reason? That's just highly implausible to me. If somebody goes on stage and he's like, I want to kill all...
It's a hypothetical.
Okay, hypothetically, I would agree with you, but I think that the rhetoric...
Okay, good.
But the rhetoric would shift to match the voter base. It wouldn't be some guy coming up here and saying that, like, oh, we need to do something because of X, Y, Z reasons.
Hold on.
We have a counter-hypothetical.
One second. Would it shift to match the voter base if that 20% was essential to get elected? Because it wouldn't.
No way.
It probably would.
Wow.
Wait, Adam, I have a counter-hypothetical for you now. Now suppose that you're going to enact a policy change that takes away appellate jurisdiction from the Supreme Court, and 95% of the population think it's for good reasons. It's for non-fascistic reasons. It's because the Supreme Court has been totally out of balance in terms of how far they're going along. But the person who enacts that policy is doing that policy specifically to set up for some kind of fascist takeover, removing a check on their power.
Oh my God.
But there you have widespread support that is non-fascistic for that policy move, but there's a kind of entrenched elite who is going to use it for a particular purpose. In that situation, even though you have widespread support, given the overriding concern of this entrenched elite, wouldn't you say that policy move was fascistic, notwithstanding the fact that
the people that support it are probably useful idiots.
So clearly, it's not enough to just say the population as a whole believes it for X reasons. We look at the totality of circumstances, and one of the most relevant considerations is what the policy agent is doing and why they're doing it. And so I think it's totally relevant.
Yeah, like
for Stephen to bring it up.
I'd want to brush up on my notes, but I imagine, in the history of fascists, they have weaponized the good intentions of the populace to affect fascist policy. So
I agree.
Right. So here's my question. So again, we talked about the border wall, but what about, we're talking about authoritarianism and fascism. So we know that Donald Trump, if he gets reelected, his goal is to try to separate the executive branch from checks and balances from Congress. He wants to take control of the FCC, potentially even the Federal Reserve. He wants to reclaim the so-called independent agencies. He wants to gut the deep state. He wants to make every federal employee
to be neutral so he doesn't get reelected. What do you want? I don't want Donald Trump for a second term.
Well, it's just
but right now the GOP is the party of Trump.
Why are you bringing up these indictments, the media's coverage of them, as though there's anything wrong with them? What about the media's coverage of the indictments?
Because I think it is going to get him reelected. I think people are being useful idiots.
So do you disagree with the indictments?
Look, I think obviously he did illegal shit. I think the indictments there's nothing wrong with the indictments. I think the way people are talking about
Wait, let me ask you a question, Pisco.
Wow.
If you had a ball and you knew that the indictments would get Trump elected, would you support them or not?
Yeah. So if I knew in advance, if I'm letting my policy objectives, my political objectives,
that's what I'm asking.
Influence,
right.
Yeah, influence who is being indicted and who's not being indicted. Then the game is up, right? The game. You could push me to the brink and say, is it going to cause nuclear war? Are you going to do the indictments? There's something that I'm gonna be like, okay, fine, whatever.
Oh my God.
But if it's the case. It's like if you push me to nuclear war, if you push me to some kind of widespread genocide, if you push me in those or the end of American
I just asked if it would get Trump elected. That's the end of the hypothetical.
I'm answering your question. So the answer is no. I would still do the indictments because if I'm doing my indictments based on who it's going to help or hurt politically, then the conservatives are right.
That's
aren't
crazy,
they?
chat.
The Trumpers are right.
Wait.
Wait. Hang on. Will you answer that question? If it's the case that I'm deciding whether to indict someone based on the political ramifications of that indictment, aren't the Trump supporters correct that it's totally political? And wouldn't that be, for me, just a total, really, I'm giving them what they want and saying that it is political.
No.
You don't agree with that?
So the people that are defending Trump in this instance, their claim is that the indictments are political and they're without merit. They are BS indictments that he shouldn't be tried on. You could have a position where you say you think Trump committed these crimes and would be found guilty if this went to trial. However, you prefer that he wouldn't be president more than that. And in your mind, that would supersede whether he's indicted or not.
Okay, but the decision of whether or not to indict, right? If that decision it's dispositive, the political ramifications. You have this crystal ball, and whether or not you bring the charges, the thing that will absolutely sway it one way or the other. So that is to say, let's say that you knew bringing this indictments would scuttle Trump's chances at the presidency. Are you telling me that but you didn't know exactly like whether it would be successful or not, but you just knew that bringing the indictments itself would end his chance of being president? Would you do the indictments or not, Sitch?
Well, it depends, because if you're asking me, I think some of the indictments are valid, some are not.
Wow.
So if the ones that were valid, I would say sure, because I don't really care about that. But if they were the ones that were not valid, I would say no.
Okay, but a lot of these are issues of first impression, right? A lot of there's not a ton of case law in indicting. The issue of first impression is an issue that there is no legal. There's not a ton of like legal precedent on, and so there's a lot of plausible cases. The standard for bringing an indictment is the same thing for arresting someone. It's probable cause.
Oh my God!
And what you're telling me right now is if it's a facially plausible indictment or one that you think is reasonably backed, that you would be okay basing your decision on your some knowledge about whether or not it's going to positively or negatively affect Trump's election.
No, that's not my position.
Wait. It's factoring into your analysis about whether to bring an indictment. What you're saying is on some indictments, I am definitely going to consider the effects on Trump's political outcomes. If that's the case, then you're doing exactly what the Trump supporters are saying the DOJ is doing. You're considering a factor that you're not supposed to consider.
I don't know how to say this. That's not what the way you're describing this is incorrect. Okay, Adam's position is not, we should only be going after Donald Trump if he's going to lose the election based on this. His position is he doesn't think it's worth, I'm speaking for him, but I thought he said his position was that he doesn't think it's worth it because it's going to end up helping Donald Trump get elected. And to him, that's more important than the law.
Look, I'm not talking about the indictment.
Sorry.
Look, let me make my position clear. I think you could do the indictments, and if the media talked about them in a neutral way, that Trump would probably lose support. I think doing the indictments and the media talking about them the way they are, I think Trump is going to win the election.
How are you going to talk about these indictments in a neutral way? These indictments are insane.
What does it mean in a neutral way?
Well, I think you just
also,
talk about the facts of the case.
How did the media cover Clinton's impeachment with Monica Lewinsky? How did the media cover Watergate with Nixon? Like, Trump's stuff is an order of magnitude worse than both of those events.
And the Monica Lewinsky stuff is perfect because didn't it help Clinton get reelected?
I think
no.
This was going to happen during.
It was his second term when that happened.
Yeah, it was like in 1998, 1999. He was out the door basically.
Yeah.
But actually, I think it was interesting because part of people were saying that the reason they thought Gore lost was because he kind of tried to run away from Clinton as opposed to kind of defending him during all that stuff.
Yeah, but see, here's
Monday morning quarterback.
But I guess baked into this, and I don't know, maybe I'm just misreading it, but again, the presumption, the burden that you are imposing on progressive commentators and the mainstream media to handle Trump with kid gloves and the Republican Party as it is now, I just don't get it. You are contributing.
It's not kid gloves, though. Why are you describing it that way? I think you could talk about these indictments in a neutral way, and I think
what would that sound like?
I'll say, because you're asking how do you talk about. You just say this is what he's being charged with. Here are the facts that are laid out in the indictment. as opposed to this, we got them, boys, and then the confetti drops down from the ceiling.
What's an example of a mainstream?
That's
Wait,
crazy,
what's an example of a mainstream
Yep.
media pundit that's covered it in a horrible way?
Yep.
David
Almost
Pakman,
every
Vosh.
almost
Gotcha.
every article I've read.
Mainstream media.
Okay, almost every New York Times article I've read about the indictments obviously seems to be very slanted against Donald Trump.
Hold on.
Very obvious.
These are
ways.
hold
What
on.
is slanted?
Wait, stop.
Yeah.
When you
Against Trump.
when you say
Literally confetti
wait.
in the article when you open
Let
it.
Steven respond.
That's
Wait,
true.
hold on. When you say okay, so hold on. If I look up firstly, New York Times Trump indictment, there's going to be confetti in these articles.
Yes,
that was a
literally.
joke.
It's like when you look up Barbie,
it's
it
hard
becomes
to
pink.
tell. I don't know. It's hard to tell. Okay, because the second you say these are slanted against Trump, like it's an indictment. Of course, it's going to be slanted. Like
No. I mean, in terms of how it's being described to the reader.
yes,
Obviously,
it's
the
an
indictment itself is slanted.
it is an indictment. Of course, it's going to be slanted.
Wait,
No.
wait,
This
wait,
person's
wait,
been
wait,
indicted of
please,
murder.
wait,
We have
stop.
videotape
Please,
footage of him
please, let's
murdering
not-
somebody.
Wait.
Just
Wait,
straightforwardly
you know-
reporting that a former president has been
Take it-
indicted is necessarily
No, wait,
going
stop,
to be
stop,
One
stop,
second,
stop,
one
stop.
second. Everybody, just 1 second, because I think Pisco's question is going to get to the root of the issue. So go ahead and ask.
Yeah.
let's go.
So to Sitch, I think this is what you're going for too. Can you talk a little bit more about that? What kind of the media slant or bias or take
No way.
is different
Wow.
or is bad? Can you be a little bit more specific?
I have to go bring up articles to bring them offhand. I didn't bring a bunch of articles to talk about this offhand. But
like
when I
the
read these
kinds of
articles,
things,
it's
like
okay.
their
Wait, but this is what I want
phrasing,
to talk about. Wait, this is what I want to talk about, and I don't understand like how this is even controversial. Okay, obviously indictments themselves, okay, are slanted in one direction. It's the state going against a person. That's not what I'm saying.
everyone agrees.
I'm saying is that
Oh my
when you
God.
read these articles or we hear these commentators talking about it, it seems very clear to me. Now maybe you disagree. It seems very clear to me that the journalists reporting on this seem to be very in favor of Donald Trump getting arrested, and it seems to be coming in the articles.
Can you say a little
That's
bit
what
more
I'm talking
about
about,
that?
not whether the indictment itself is slanted, because obviously it is.
They're dancing
Other than
on
your
his
general
grave.
take on that, can you say a little bit more? Can you say like, okay, the
Wait,
words
do you
they're
disagree
using-
with this?
That's crazy.
Yeah, hold on.
Jack.
Yes, I
I
disagree.
do.
Wait. Also,
Yeah,
you need to be
okay.
really careful. You got to draw a difference between pundits and articles, because you're saying on one side of your mouth, you're saying if you look at a New York Times article, I read a lot of New York Times and WAP articles. Generally, articles are neutral. Now, you can argue that the collection of facts they have might be good or bad, or might be biased or unbiased, but they're not usually celebratory. It sounds like you're talking about pundits. And if you want to say in one breath New York Times, and then say, well, look at what Vosh or Sam Cedar are saying, these are two entirely separate realms of reporting and news.
Also, by
Yeah,
the
one's
way,
actual
read the Wall
commentary.
Street Journal. Read the Wall Street Journal. Read Fox News articles.
National Review.
National Review.
no one's
Those
saying
are
Fox
highly,
News is unbiased.
Hang on, at least Wall Street Journal. Come on, there are a lot of people who are
Always
saying there are
devolves
First
to
Amendment issues.
whataboutism. I
There are-
hate it.
No, hang on. No, because if you're alleging a media bias and it's just rote, kind of like average spins that, and there's actually a lot of criticism about the indictments coming from,
Completely
I would say,
irrelevant on
centrist.
the right though, because it's there. Look, we're not in the situation on the right that we're in with Donald
if you're
Trump.
gonna
What
use
if
the
a
New York
recitation
Times-
of the facts? What if it's just a base recitation of the facts, and the facts just happen to look really bad for Trump? That's the thing. Like I'm trying. We
fine
have the
then.
phone
There's no
call.
problem
We
with
have the
that.
phone call of him,
There's
like
no
in the
problem with
national defense information. Yeah, this is classified. I could have declassified it when I was president. Like you can't present that or talk about it in a way
No
that
way.
is neutral in a way. Well,
Wow.
maybe that can be spun in a way that doesn't look so bad for Trump. No, by default, it's going to be awful.
To be clear, neutral doesn't mean you have to both sides the issue.
Yeah,
Okay?
of course.
If it was just like, here's the facts, here's what the phone call said, here's what the indictment said, okay, then that's good. I'm in favor
But
of the article.
that's what a New York Times article is generally going to read like.
Okay, well, that hasn't been my
disagree.
personal experience.
Hold on,
Well,
to be clear, wait,
hang
hold on.
on.
I'm sorry. Wait. I don't normally force contextualize, but to be clear, you guys are disagreeing without a single example, but this
Oh my
idea
God.
was so prevalent to you that you felt like it was worth bringing up, which means that it wasn't
We've
just one or
seen
two articles.
examples. We don't
It means
have
that it
one
sounds like these are.
handy.
No, hold on. You brought this up as though this is a problem that is ubiquitously present through all of mainstream media, and you don't have a single example on hand. Now, I'm not going to sit here and force an example out of you, but if it is so ubiquitous, you should be able to point to at least one thing.
You-
But you can't point to a single thing, which makes me feel like this is kind of an invented problem.
or
That's
you're
crazy.
trying to
Yeah.
wash his commentary up with a New York Times article, just to be clear.
Or the kinds of things that you're looking at. I mean, I can point to you
Gotcha.
the Wall Street Journal
Anything
and
else?
other mainstream publications that, maybe lean a bit of right, which are highly critical of the indictments. And I can tell you why, because they're putting forth Trump's First Amendment arguments. They're talking about potential problems with immunity in terms of him being in office at the time for that kind of conduct. So there's a lot of, at least I would say in mainstream centrist right-wing circles, the coverage that I've seen has been critical of the indictments for those reasons. And I just haven't seen what you're talking about or the kinds of things that you're talking about.
Okay, so first of all, I didn't even bring an example of this because to me it seems so apparent. I didn't even think.
Do you agree with Adam?
Wait, stop. Let me please finish. I didn't think this would be a point of contention. I assumed people would just agree with this, but I guess not. Because I literally just Googled Trump indictment, New York Times. One of the first articles that came up was an article it's called "How Jack Smith Structured the Trump Election Indictment to Reduce Risks." And I've only read like the first 3 paragraphs because we're in the middle of a conversation. So maybe at the end of it becomes hyper nuanced. But I get the impression from this article that it's definitely seeming to be putting a glowing spin on Jack Smith and kind of trying to elevate him and talk about how good a job he did with these indictments. Okay. This is a weird conversation.
Just real quick, because this is kind of like a 4v2 or something going on here.
No way.
Adam Sitch, they were more prepared to talk about progressive pundits, not so much news coverage. So just to say, them not having it in their back pocket.
Let's just keep going.
No, not on them. But go ahead. What were you going to chime in with, Destiny?
I'm going to read this article now because I'm curious if it actually
read the article. I haven't even read the article. I just looked at the first 3 or 4 paragraphs. I'm like, okay, it seems like it's pretty putting a glowing thing on Mr. Smith here.
Which part of the 3 or 4 paragraphs seems glowing?
This is more a 4v1
oh my God.
too, because I'm just sitting here enjoying it.
This was your point, Adam.
It was your point, yeah. What do you mean you're just enjoying it?
He's abandoned it to Sitch.
It sounds like, because I read the first 4 paragraphs too, it sounds like it's just talking about a different way of charging these indictments in a way to sidestep a hairy First Amendment issue. I don't think any of these are glowing. It's not like, he did it amazing, he's so fucking smart, his dick is way bigger than Trump's. Like,
That's the 5th paragraph.
It would have been more interesting.
That's crazy.
Well, Destiny, you got to get all the way to the end to hear that part.
Well, hold on. I think it's important because there is this perception sometimes,
Anything else?
and people accuse me of this, but at least I'm careful to say, like, pundits have problems, but the reporting, I'll even go as far as say, even on Fox, the reporting section of Fox is relatively neutral, and that's just like standard like operating procedure. CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, like most of the articles of the reporting are pretty neutral, but people are very quick to mix in punditry with the reporting, which I don't think is fair.
Harry, is there a text part of this channel that we're in that we could like drop sources and stuff together?
Oh, please, no, it's so boring. Let's not.
No. I'm just saying, like, if somebody wanted a link to the goddamn article, that way we
Google New York
we
Times.
have a
Google Jack Smith structured Trump
show here.
Yeah, no. I did. I was just gonna share it for everybody else.
Well, I see a PDF in that chat. Oh my God.
I love Adam. I think Adam's great. I love the Sitch and Adam show. I was confused it, but I heard this take from you, Adam, and I just thought it was bizarro land because even on CNN, even the pundits that I'm hearing, they're all saying, this is a very important case, this is a very like historic case, but it's not without its issues in terms of like it's fraught with, like I said, issues in first impression, First Amendment possible challenges, which are not trivial. I don't think that they're successful. I think that they're meritless, but they're not trivial.
Isco, do you believe in the concept of microaggressions? Do you believe that you can inadvertently offend somebody? No, I'm making a serious point here.
I believe it. Listen, it's like all language. It's to a certain extent it exists if people think it exists. So if people
hold
are
on,
perceiving
just answer the question. Just answer the question.
Well, wait a minute. When I said,
do you think you can inadvertently offend people?
Of course you can inadvertently.
Okay. Yes, so do I. Okay. I think when we're reading these articles, I'm reading them from a conservative. I can see how a conservative might read this article.
How can you control for that?
Offended.
Adam, they're offended at the reporting of the facts.
Yeah. There's no way to control. The facts are by themselves.
Hold on. The only reason I'm bringing this up is to tell you, Pisco, you're reading these articles thinking they are completely down the line neutral and that I'm insane.
Because
I'm reading these articles.
Chat.
And then I'm reading these, because you're coming from your own personal perspective.
No, it's not.
I'm reading these articles, and I'm going, there's microaggressions all over these articles.
It's a good point. No, it's a good point in the general sense of I'm reading this from a perspective of Pisco, and so whenever I'm reading something, I need to make sure to take off those blinders and read it as though I'm, I don't know, Trump America.
Yes,
but even if I take off those blinders, I think that's a perfectly fine thing to say. But even if I take off those blinders, at a certain point, it's an exercise in futility because there's nothing I could write this article that would make, I don't know, other than pandering directly to Trump, that would make it like digestible for a Trump person.
This used to be the job of journalists, though, to understand that. To understand that the way that they do
by implication,
their job,
you're saying that it's not the job anymore. By implication, you're saying that they're not doing their job and that these New York Times
because I don't think they're unbiased. I think that they're.
Well, of course they're not unbiased. No journalist, no actor who has any sort of political opinion, even in journalism, is or ever has been unbiased.
I think that's I think we should.
I think journalists are meant to challenge. I think journalists are meant to challenge, not to pander. I think journalists are supposed to give us hard truths that are sometimes going to be unaccepted by the American people, not just to give them red meat. So I guess we have a different opinion on what journalism is.
So let me ask. So Adam, can the facts of Trump's indictment, as we understand it, and the evidence which is publicly available for his indictments, like the Georgia phone call or the national, like the phone call where he's showing documents to whomever, or the shit that we know he said with respect to 2020 and the election surrounding it, can these facts be presented by a journalist in a way that is amenable to Trump supporters? I don't think it's possible. I think the facts of these indictments...
We fundamentally disagree.
You're describing the Associated Press. The Associated Press is probably the closest that you're going to get to completely nonpartisan, straight reporting of any ongoing event. Would you agree or no?
No.
I disagree. It says he's being indicted.
Associated Press is biased?
That literally contradicts what he just said 15 seconds ago. He literally said nobody is capable of being unbiased. Why would you look at that source and think that people are unbiased?
She said it's the closest that comes to it. I don't think anybody believes that I
don't think we're way off.
Gotcha. Anything else?
I would.
We are way off. I want to point out that you started with saying that these liberal pundits are vilifying conservative voters, and now you've moved it all the way to, well, they're microaggressing upon conservative readers.
It sounds like you just. It sounds like you want factual articles written at a second grade reading level. That's what it sounds like. Like you want them to say, yesterday Trump indicted. Who knows what'll happen? Good luck. See you tomorrow.
Well, I mean, you can use fancy words and be neutral. You don't have to read it at a second grade level.
Well, in that case, I would just like to see a New York Times or WAPO article that's written that just doesn't come off as neutral. That just seems like
wait a minute.
I would like any article ever that you view as neutral, as a rubric for me to see what you guys classify as neutrality. This seems like an impossible standard to reach.
And while you're looking that up, I think that's a ridiculous premise to have. The idea that just all reporting period is just going to say former President Donald Trump indicted on these 4 charges. There's going to be analysis, like the article that you just linked to.
That article is not neutral. Yeah, I don't know what to tell you.
The article,
from the paragraphs that I heard.
The article you just linked was news analysis. They're going to be breaking these down to constituent components. And again, I'm thinking, I don't see, it almost just bakes in that every indictment or every legal case has a 50.
Wow. Do you understand the argument that I'm making? I just want to make sure that I'm clear here, because
I don't. Please go ahead.
I'm not advocating that people change the way that they're doing things. I'm saying that the way that they're doing things now are having an unintended consequence that they're not taking into consideration. I think the jabs, the underhanded jabs, are increasing Donald Trump's popularity in a way that makes me personally uncomfortable, because I don't want to see a second term of Donald Trump.
Are you open to the possibility?
I will pass it right to you, Aaron, I promise. But are we skipping reading the article?
Yeah. It's kind of a sense
We're doing a live read.
That's crazy, chat.
Go ahead, Aaron.
Are you saying that criticizing Donald Trump only serves him in the long run?
Gotcha. Anything else?
Yes.
If that's the standard,
wait, no, that can't be the answer. That can't be the answer. That can't be the answer.
Yeah. That cannot be the standard by which.
So it has to be praise, or it has to be your conception of neutrality. Praise again. Praise is going to up his support, right? You're saying there's no such thing as neutrality because every single source, like even the Associated Press, you guys probably think is biased against him, and then you're also saying criticism aids him.
Let him respond.
I think it's possible for there to be a certain class of people we call journalists that are neutral arbiters. I don't agree that everyone is biased to the point that no one can attempt this job without being biased.
I would disagree with that too, just by the way, as the person who said that journalists were biased. Yeah.
Obviously, you disagree with it. I think at one time we did strive to have neutral journalists. Journalists didn't even vote because they didn't want to be biased by actually voting.
Wait, really?
Well, wait a minute. What I'm saying is that every journalist
didn't vote in elections so that they could be unbiased election reports.
It wasn't a law or anything. That may have been a civic imposition they imposed on themselves. But hang on, But real quick, I said that every journalist is biased and always has been. I don't believe in like AI cyborg journalists who are just free of bias. Now, do I think that they should strive? Wait a minute. Aspirational. The reason I agree that you should strive to be, but it's like an asymptote. You'll never get there. You should strive to be as bias free as possible. But number one, you'll never get there. And number two, the only reason I brought that up is because I don't think that you cited an example of biased writing. It almost, the argument seemed to be like, okay, I can't provide you an instance of biased reporting, but the reporters themselves are biased. And I was just biting the bullet and saying, sure, of course the reporters are biased, but unless that materially manifests in their coverage, who gives a shit? That's
I also
crazy.
can't find any evidence for the claim that journalists used to not vote to avoid partisanship.
So, okay,
really
so while, wait, hold on.
Anything else?
Okay. So while everyone was talking, I was looking through New York Times articles, and I will agree that I will take back what I said. I found lots of New York Times articles that did seem to be talking about the Trump indictment in a neutral or at least factual way for the most part. So I will take that back, and I will give New York Times credit for that. And I was allowing my bias towards. Well, I do actually, yes. And I was allowing my bias towards New York Times when they talk about other issues like basically every article about CRT is completely wrong, to color my vision on this situation. So
that was beautiful consensus. Adam, Sitch are also, to their audience, they're rewarding their entire audience with free New York Times subscriptions. Get it now. See them, DM them afterwards. Every single person watching.
But
wait, do you guys have a problem with like partisan journalism?
Wait. Do you think overall, if you were just on like a numbers game in terms of mainstream media, do you think the mainstream media leans to the left or to the right, or do you think it's neutral?
I would say that, like, if you looked at New York Times journalists or CNN or whatever, I imagine they vote Democrat. I imagine they have a liberal bias.
I mean, in terms of reporting and, opinion pieces and even non-opinion pieces.
No way.
Which way do you think it's going to lean?
It's hard because you're ignoring Murdoch and local news and talk radio. And those are huge.
No, you can include that. I said mainstream media. Fox,
including everything, for me, it's a wash because the prominence of Rupert Murdoch and all of the kind of Republican channels and talk radio still is so influential in the places they are, that to sort of speak about media generally in like the number of media outlets, and in the number of media outlets that people cite, there's a left-wing bias in terms of the readership and all that stuff. But to be honest with you, probably because there's a bias in readership at all. I'm guessing more.
You think
in terms of like.
Well, I was going to say a ton of local news outlets are owned by the Sinclair Broadcast Group, and that's a conservative group.
So Sitch, Adam, I don't know if you'd be amenable to this, but I think Jon Stewart made a compelling case for this like 10 years ago when he was in a conversation with Chris Wallace when Wallace was still on Fox News. So Wallace did the whataboutism too. He's like, okay, Jon Stewart, you say Fox is biased, but what about the mainstream media? And Jon Stewart, I think, made a very prophetic case. He's like, the mainstream media, its journalists are probably Democrat sympathizing, but in terms of their reporting, he says their bias is towards laziness and sensationalism, and he gave a couple of examples that were relevant to the time. I think there are even examples of this now. I bitch about it on Twitter all the time, where, for example, in 2018, when Donald Trump was president and the unemployment rate, or he had a great jobs report, it was like 180,000 or something like that, and the headlines on the Associated Press and Reuters and all the others, Donald Trump got, explosive jobs report, blah, blah, blah. Joe Biden gets the same figure like 2 months ago, and it's like lethargic jobs report. Like, I don't buy this idea that the mainstream media, the non-Fox mainstream media, is activistic in the way that Fox News is. Fox is like its own beast. There is no analog, not even close. Perhaps MSNBC, but MSNBC is a fraction of the viewer base. And I think actually you'll find more people on MSNBC who will criticize Biden and the Democrats than you would find Fox journalists or whatever criticizing the Republican Party and Donald Trump.
Yeah, but they're criticizing him for not going far left enough, aren't they?
I will give it right back to you, but I want to respect everyone's time, and I want to make sure nobody feels like they have to stay longer than they need to. We've gone over an extra hour, so if anybody would like to dip out, you are free to dip out. We can always do another topic of this. And if everyone's on board, then go ahead and stay. And go ahead, Sitch.
I'm sorry, Sitch, what'd you say, buddy?
I forgot.
Oh my god.
Sorry. Who's bringing up NBC?
You had to read
and
too many
Fox?
New York Times.
Oh, you said about Fox. You're like, aren't they criticizing him for not being like left enough instead of pushing him to go
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah, right. Yeah, when they criticize Biden, aren't they criticizing him for not going further to the left? Isn't that the criticism generally levied at him?
I mean, maybe, but you had
I
Joe
think for
Scarborough on
being
MSNBC
all-
too, where he's kind of a conservative Democrat, and I think they're
That's
He was on him
crazy chat.
recently. He's pretty.
I do actually, but my point is, criticism is criticism, right? I think
Gotcha.
you're going to find
Anything
more
else?
dissent of the Democrats and progressives among the non-Fox mainstream media than you do. That you'll find dissent in Fox for Republicans and conservatives. So I think Jon Stewart had the right of it 10 years ago, and I think it continues to be borne out in the facts now. I mean, my God, look at the polling on President Biden's economy, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, the economy's in a shithole, and we're like 2 inches away from a recession." When if you break it down on the metrics, it's just not true. I think the mainstream media has a bias towards negativity, sensationalism, and laziness in a way that Fox does not.
How long have we been on the border of a recession?
Ha 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 ha.
Forever. Well, since January 21st, 2021, when Joe Biden was inaugurated. Yeah. Now, not January 20th, 2021. That was different because Trump was still president. We were recession free then. But
That bugs me, those Noble Gold ads that they always talk about us being in recession, and we aren't in a recession. God damn it, stop saying that.
yeah. I guess what I was getting at earlier when I was asking about like the authoritarian presence, then we talked about the border wall and indictments and everything else. Even if I grant you the premise, and I think I would, that there are, of course, authoritarian impulses and strains and probably activists who are authoritarian on the right and the left, do you not agree that right now it seems to be more prominent on the right, particularly when it comes to leveraging state power? Like, I know you all talk about the culture too, but to me, the culture is much more disparate and diffuse and doesn't have the threat of state force behind it in a way that what we see on the authoritarian right. Like, do you not recognize or appreciate the fundamental meaningful distinctions between these things?
Well,
Enough
so
to say
though,
that one is worse?
Right. Well, so even though, I might agree with you in terms of, I think the way it's manifesting in government, specifically local government, is more on the right side of things. And I think it's the way it's manifesting in culture is more on the left side of things. Though every conservative will get mad because they'll all want to point to the COVID lockdowns and all those restrictions. But to me,
Red states did
those
too.
aren't my issues. But
That's crazy
this
chat.
is why it's just kind of annoying. When we have these conversations, that it's like me and Adam are like have to be the defenders of
Anything else?
conservative ideology when this isn't really our ideology to defend, or our positions really to defend in the first place.
When you speak to your
But
audience,
wait. So, but the thing I want to talk about, and this is kind of what annoys me, in this sort of the way that you're framing this, and it's kind of what came up with Kyle and Crystal, is it's like, even if theoretically, the right was just way more authoritarian than the left, okay. Me and Adam can still exist on YouTube, even though we talk about authoritarian right shit, like, a lot, okay? But even if we didn't, hypothetically, if all we did was complain about woke shit and authoritarian left, okay, so what? Those are still real issues that people have to deal with. And it annoys me that whenever it's kind of brought up like, well, what about, isn't it worse on the right? It's like, you're trying to downplay the shit that's going on the left, okay?
Yep.
I think it's downplaying. I think that's just properly contextualizing who's the bigger threat in American politics. It's clearly the right.
Listen, so Stephen, Stephen's a great
though.
example. Look at Stephen. Stephen's a great example. Stephen bitches about the left all the time. But you know what? When pushed, he'll say the Republican Party and the Democratic Party are not equal in terms of their corruption, their stupidity, their authoritarian.
It's a different
strength.
view.
No.
Wait, he has
Wait a
a
minute.
different view, okay?
No
we
way.
complain about things on the right
Wow.
all the time. You were just praising me for attacking the narrative on the Devin Archer testimony.
Yes, I
So
agree.
it's like,
That was an
it's
instance.
like casting us in this weird light where you're acting like that we are the Tim Pool equivalent, where we're just kind of feeding one side something that they want to hear while trying to cast ourselves as centrists when you don't think that we are, which is
Well,
not
that's-
us.
Well, that's what I asked.
I don't
when
think you are.
Well, thank you.
You do think they're Tim
Thanks,
Pool? Is that what you said?
No, I don't. Yeah,
Oh
no,
my
I don't
God.
think that they're the equivalent of Tim Pool. I think that we're talking and debating about with people with whom we're like engaging with their actual genuine points, and they just disagree on some stuff. And so I'm never coming at them with the perspective that they're one frame or like one label or not. I just disagree. And it's fine for you to have your own. You want to emphasize culture issues, and that's your bread and butter. That's okay.
That's crazy
But if you're
chat.
going to come on here and we're going to have a comparative conversation, if that is the conversation, comparing one versus the other,
Gotcha.
I think that,
Anything
and if
else?
you're going to say it's a wash, that's an argument that I'm going to engage.
Well, no, I said
Right.
think in terms of the way it's manifesting in government and local government, it is more the right wing stuff.
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
do think it's manifesting in culture way more on the left. And I think culture, culture and politics feed into each other. Politics is downstream from culture.
Do you think the right
these
ever
are important
controls-
things?
Well, that view of it, that dichotomy, the frame of it, I just wholly disagree with as a setup point, right? For me, the right wing right now, culture and politics are not separatable. They're not. You can't separate them. They've congealed. They're all one thing. Their culture.
No,
is
okay,
their
well,
politics. Their politics is their culture.
So here's kind of, I think, I should have brought this up. This is kind of the reason I think this manifests this way, is that the way it kind of seems to me is that you had like a woke or leftist infiltration of a lot of institutions and culture that kind of just seemed to grow like a snowball, grow and grow and grow and grow and grow, and it only got pushed back recently. And the way it's getting pushed back is through government, because it can't get pushed back through colleges and through these sorts of institutions. So of course you say, well, look, all the pushback, all the authoritarianness is coming from the right in government.
No way.
Are you talking about postmodern neo-Marxists invading academia?
Yes.
You're like tracing a causality there, that the reason that they're going after these institutions and they're using their governmental means to sort of clamp down on cultural issues is because there is no other option to do so. And
well, I assume you agree that
up,
that's what caused the pushback, right?
Are you
no?
speaking
You think
specifically
it's all
about
like
CRT or
anything? Yeah, CRT.
Oh my
any of the sort of woke stuff that seem to definitely be kind of permeating in colleges.
I'm not sure I accept that premise, but well, hang on. Even if we did, wouldn't that be a tacit confession that the Republicans or conservatives have lost in the marketplace of ideas? Because it wasn't always the case. Wait a minute.
No.
How did culture become woke or liberal or
because
leftist?
it's from a top-down because it's from
That's
a top-down
crazy,
thing. Like we can use CRT if you want like a specific example, because if there was CRT and CRT concepts being taught in schools or gender theory ideas being taught in schools, that the public doesn't necessarily agree with CRT or gender ideology or any of these things, but they were being taught in schools from a top-down approach.
When do you think the left captured culture? Well, wait a minute. I'm thinking like gender ideologies. I know like CRT goes back to the 70s. Let's set that aside for a second. You're talking about gender ideology. If I accept that premise, when do you think culture became woke? Because I thought teaching gender ideology, as you define it, was a relatively new phenomenon.
It is. That's my argument. I don't understand.
So culture only recently became woke, like within the past 2 or 3 years. Well,
I say it started in 2014 and it kind of like snowballed and got bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah.
What was it prior to 2014?
It seemed like from my opinion, as someone who was definitely further more on the left back then, I think culture in the mainstream definitely felt more to the left, but it felt more rooted in liberalism. And now it feels like the woke stuff is anti-liberal.
So my estimation, and maybe others on this panel disagree with me besides you and Adam, is that most of American history, it was,
no way,
if we're going to use this label, anti-woke, and has become more woke over time. I think anti-woke preceded woke. Okay, so like you talk about 2014, I remember when the Dixie Chicks bitched about President Trump or President Bush and got eliminated overnight in terms of their radio outreach. That wasn't they criticized a conservative president at a time when it seemed like conservative ideology was dominant in the culture, and they were canceled as a result.
Oh my God.
We can go back to the 80s under Reagan.
That's a good example, because I think in those days it seemed like things, and I think kind of going back to that, but I think in those days things were kind of neutral. So you had kind of both sides. So you had the Dixie Chicks come out and they said what they said, and they kind of got canceled because they were like country, because they were like country music. So it's like that's like their audience. It's kind of like
that's why they should have been canceled.
Right,
right?
It's kind of like Bud Light now, essentially being canceled by conservatives and their drinker. But even back then, I mean, you had Kanye come out and say George Bush doesn't care about black people. You had even like the Duke lacrosse thing, which was like hyper wokeness, kind of like breaching its head for the first time publicly from an institution. And yet, like those narratives, I mean, you can't say the Duke lacrosse thing existed in a strictly, anti-woke conservative ecosystem.
What do you think about like House Republicans renaming French fries Freedom Fries?
Wait! Before we change subject, you agree like the Duke lacrosse thing would be a counterexample of it being like conservative.
I'll be honest with you. I remember the Kanye thing because it was after Hurricane Katrina, and he was like looking at the camera, and Mike Myers was like, "What the hell?" I do remember that, but I do not remember. I don't even know what the hell. like the lacrosse team at Duke University, or is that a guy's name?
They were accused. The Duke lacrosse. It was like this massive scandal. The Duke lacrosse team was accused of sexually assaulting a black stripper, like in a really horrific way, and everyone basically presumed guilt of these kids from the word go, and it was because they were rich white kids at a college. They were taking advantage of this poor black girl who was a stripper, and then it turned out the whole thing was like she just faked the entire thing. The entire thing was fake, and I believe they ended up suing Duke and getting a shit ton of money for this.
No way.
Do you know what her name was?
Wow.
Not off the top of my head.
People are saying her name was Destiny.
That's hilarious.
Is it really? That'd be funny if it was.
A few people in chat said it. I don't know if it's turned out.
I don't remember that, but okay, I will concede that there were obviously even then examples of perhaps the reverse. But are there? I don't follow much culture war stuff now.
You're free, Destiny. It's Crystal Magnum was her name.
Oh, Crystal Magnum, Jesus.
No.
Yeah. But are there not examples even now in 2023 of anti-woke victories in culture as well? So like
but we talked about Bud Light, yeah.
Sure. Well, actually, that's a good example too, because Ron DeSantis is threatening to sue Anheuser-Busch for suffering the market consequences of a boycott that he encouraged. So fucking bizarre. You want to talk about? I mean, Pisto's a lawyer.
That's crazy, chat.
It wouldn't be legally entrapment, but like setting him up to fail and then punishing them for the consequences. So here's where I'm confused.
Gotcha.
Help me out
Anything
here.
else?
If even today in 2023, we've got examples of woke success and anti-woke success, and then that was the case as well 10, 15 years ago, maybe the culture war or the culture situation is a bit more diverse than some people would believe. Like,
okay,
it's
so
not,
right. I understand what you're saying. So okay, my position is not that culture for the last 200 years has been woke, and finally now the Republican Party has woken up to fight back against the socialists. That's not my argument. My argument was from 2014 things started seeming to become pretty woke, and it kind of got bigger and bigger and bigger, especially in colleges and other institutions. And then the Republicans and the right started pushing back on it recently, and they've been doing it through government. That's all I meant, and that's all I said.
Okay.
Do you disagree with that framing?
I would need it, because I'll be honest with you, culture war stuff is not my wheelhouse. I would need to go back and seriously think about the time frame that you're offering. But I have nothing to contradict.
I mean, they do it through government, they do it through media, they do it through convincing people, they do it through all sorts of things. And so I don't know. I just don't. I think it's a little simplistic.
They don't control the New York Times, obviously, Pisco.
They don't use the methods that are outside of their control. So you observing that is just saying that they don't control the things they don't control. Well, it's a little tautological.
The thing that kind of, I think, both kind of changed me and Adam's position on this and kind of woke us up from our left-wing bubble for most of our lives was the fact that...
You are woke.
There you go. Well, no, it's because, like you, we viewed the right as being the moral majority, right? The Republican Christians that were trying to stamp down on free speech and free expression.
Oh my God.
And, like, trying to prevent people from talking about things and talking about free expression. And so when we started to see the left during that 2014, it was pretty jarring to us. Okay?
Right.
It was jarring to me too. Listen, you would be surprised when I was in school. I actually lost a few friends because I was vocal about that I didn't like. I don't know if you guys remember the
ACLU.
They were going after some guy with like
I don't like Jews.
That's crazy, chap.
No, I don't know what you're talking about. What are you saying? Am I crazy?
Gotcha.
There was some
Anything
guy going
else?
at, like, some woman going after a guy because he had dreads. There was a case where, like, there was a costume controversy.
There's a white guy with dreads. I remember talking about.
Yeah. All those incidents were situations in which I think a lot of you guys would be surprised, but younger Pisco, college-age Pisco,
had dreads.
was, like, very much. I didn't have dreads though. My hair doesn't work that way. But I was like uncomfortable with those moments, and I think Destiny has been very vocal about his opposition to those forces. 100%.
That's great.
And I think that there's nothing. I don't know. I guess that's all I have to say. I agree with you on those points. I just don't see it as right now the predominant issue facing our country. I'm not like that happens, and I criticize it when it does. But I'm very alarmed by what I'm seeing on the right.
Okay.
Well,
I am too. Let me just. I just want to say, like, I don't know if you've been like James Lindsay, even, who I'm sure a lot of you guys don't like, has even been trying to raise the warning bell about right-wing Christian nationalism, taking over. So I definitely think what you're saying is a problem. And I do want to commend you, Pisco, because when I was listening to, Mahler debate XQC, the lefty communist, were the only person that brought up property rights in a conversation about intellectual property.
Way.
Oh,
So
don't even get me started on
that
that because Steven has totally gone to the wind with this stuff. And
no.
no one
muted,
seems to
Cherry.
care. Oh, it's Cherry talking.
Are you a commie?
I'm not
I
a
was
communist. No,
I was
no.
just joking. I was just.
He was
Oh,
memeing.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, it
I am
was
too.
red.
Disco, I keep pivoting back to Trump,
Yeah.
which I think a lot of people on this panel would think of Trump as the most existential threat to society.
100%. Yeah.
Politically,
Okay,
yeah.
so and
Oh my
I am
God.
saying, my estimation, and obviously, like I've said a million times, this is my gut intuition, is that a lot of the news media that is left-leaning, who views Trump as an existential threat, uses this non-neutral reporting method. I think that they're creating something that they're literally trying to fight against. So that's
That's
the
crazy,
only,
chat.
Okay,
Can you
I
non-neutral?
understand. Look, I understand that you do not believe that is true. You think
Gotcha.
that it's
Anything else?
impossible.
Whoa,
to,
let me hold on.
No, he's talking to me. He's talking to me. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I understand that, but I'm just saying this is my perspective, and we'll see how it plays out. So I don't.
Your homework assignment, young man, is you're going to write an article about an existential threat in the neutralist
I have
terms
chat-
possible, and I will grade it.
I have Chat GPT. So what do you want the article on?
No, damn it. You can't do that. Cop out.
Wait. I want to address Adam because I think that. Listen, I've listened to the Rachel Maddow and the who's that other MSNBC contributor that everyone is.
Chris Hayes,
Mehdi
Mehdi
Oh
Hassan.
my God. Mehdi Hassan, yeah. And good.
We recently covered them, and Sitch looked up some metrics on it that MSNBC was worse than Fox News. So I mean,
In what's
It was according to according to NewsGuard, they're worse.
worse
Had a
than
lower-
what?
How?
in,
What?
more
They had a
in-
lower
Just
rating
worse.
under NewsGuard.
I feel like I'm listening to Spinal Tap.
Accuracy.
Go to 11. Okay. Oh, an accuracy. Okay.
Yes.
Well, no,
listen,
well, you don't. NewsGuard rates news agencies. It's supposed to be
That's fine.
fairly respected and neutral. And lower. It said that MSNBC had a lower score
No
than
way.
Fox. That's not like.
No, I
the
think
last
he meant
thing
he
I'm
didn't
hearing
hear
about
you. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not disputing the.
I mean, they were
stats. I don't
both
know
like
who
they
the
both
hell
had shitty
NewsGuard
scores.
is.
By the way, it's not like
Is
one
this
was
before,
good. Right?
Is this before
They
or
were both
after
in
the
the
Fox
toilet.
lawsuit? Would you say
It
this
was
is
after.
before?
It was after.
It was after.
I believe so. Yeah.
After. Oh, so maybe the loss. That's a great point, Cherry. Maybe the
No.
lawsuit-
This was.
that's
I believe it was
don't know.
after. So that included the Fox lawsuit.
Yeah.
As soon as Cherry
included in
slips
the
those
sense that it would
Crocs
be
on, man,
more-
Oh
she's
my
just
God.
like.
But
she's
I'm not
like
sure. Maybe they
dropping
haven't
points
updated
left,
it
right, and
yet.
center.
Well, listen, I am not disputing the stats that you're bringing up because I don't know about them, and so I'm not here to tell you that MSNBC is better, more accurate, less biased, more biased, any of that stuff. All I'm trying to say is I hear Adam when he says, if you think something is an existential threat, surely you're willing to do X, and it's kind of an intuitive argument that people. I've heard. I know he's brought up.
That's crazy,
by
chat.
me and ruminate a lot, but Rob Noor brings this up a lot. If you think that Donald Trump is an existential threat, wouldn't you, if you're the DOJ
Gotcha.
or FBI,
Anything
wouldn't you be
else?
putting your thumb on the scale to prevent him from coming up? I think that there's an intuitive appeal to that. There's a kind of like almost intrinsic bias that a lot of Trump supporters say exists in all anti-Trump people that they absolutely and necessarily follows from their hatred of Trump. I would just be careful about how much you let that argument
Neutrally
carry you.
reporting is not cheating. I'm not asking people to lie.
No, I know you're not, but like it sounds like the standard. If the articles that I guess we back away from the specific articles, but in any given situation, I just ask you to like think a little bit about what the standard is that you're applying and how it would look like if everyone followed it. And like I hope that you're okay with like there being political pundits who do take like a polemical stance on stuff. Rachel Maddow has a right to exist. Right, Destiny has a right to exist. You guys are polemical. You guys are.
That's what I was trying to say before. Like, I think all of these people have a right to exist because you have to do this balancing act with free speech, and obviously, free speech is important. And I'm for expand people being able to say what they want to say. I am just saying that a lot of those people who are talking about how Trump is an existential threat and that we're teetering on the edge of fascism, those are the people who I think are ironically creating a lot of the problem.
Bro, come on, who's creating more of the problem? Trump or these media people? Trump is. I mean, aren't you guys... I'm going to push you on this. You guys must support these indictments, right?
Yes.
I support the
some of them were invalid, but you didn't say which ones were invalid.
I'm sorry. Let me specify. Don't you support?
Well, hold on. Whether or not I think they're true and correct.
Okay, hold on.
I don't think anything is untrue in the indictments.
So I think I think on the documents case, it seems from reading what we know so far, Trump definitely is guilty of what they're accusing him of. I think with the coup stuff,
That's crazy, chat.
I only read the indictment once. The only thing that really stuck out to me that I thought seemed like worthy of
Anything
charges
else?
was the fake electors thing. Creating the fake slate of electors.
Come on, bro.
What were the other things that you think were?
I mean, he was
I
trying
don't
to
think
defraud the United States, right? Was he not?
wasn't that
Yeah.
part of that was part of the defraud the United States charge, right? Was the creation of the fake?
It was
slate of electors?
four
All of those paragraphs
counts.
were incorporated.
Yeah.
Everything, if you read it, they all incorporate by reference the factual circumstance from the first count. So that it's all incorporated in each part of the counts. So, but let's just go off the facts. Suppose that Donald Trump had ordered the Department of Justice and the Attorney General to declare that fraud was that there was a bunch of fraud in the election. What do you think about that?
If he hadn't backed down from that, because that's what he tried to do, I think that would be definitely a way to hit him with that charge. 100%.
Like,
he did back down.
So you agree that
I'm not saying it's justified morally. I'm just saying I don't know from a crime.
But that's what I mean, right? So if Trump had, let's say another one, if Trump had ordered the military to go and occupy Congress so that he becomes the president.
Obviously, of course.
Okay, right. But if Trump tries to do any of those things, that's an attempt, right?
He didn't try to order the military to occupy the Congress, did he?
No. Okay, sorry.
Wow.
I want to be clear. I'm not saying that Trump ordered or tried to make any military directive, but that was merely an analogy to show that if the completed act is something that would be a coup or an attempt or like some kind of illegal act that you would absolutely condemn as as illegal, right? You would agree probably it would be illegal for the president to send marching in troops to occupy the Congress.
If Trump called up the military in finger quotes, and said, "I want you to go, occupy the Capitol," 100%. Even if the military doesn't agree, that 100% should be a crime, right? Because he picked up the phone and told him to do that.
So his attempt to do that, right? So it's different than just publishing articles about, well, the vice president can just unilaterally decide the elections. When you have a meeting of the minds and you take overt acts, overt steps in furtherance of that
crazy, chat.
Particular purpose, that is for you to become the president, for you to tell the vice president
Gotcha. Anything else?
not certify certain electoral votes, whether it's construed, by the way, there's a difference of opinion and different on the facts. And I credit Pence more than Trump on this point about whether he said to send them back or just not accept and declare them as president. When you have that happening, whether or not Pence tried to do that, the fact that Trump is trying to do it, attempting to do it, and conspiring with others to do it, that's gotta be, you gotta agree with that at least that we are doing something about that in the indictment.
Do you think it matters? Because I know in the indictment their position was that Trump knowingly lied about the election. Do you think that it matters? Do you think it matters what Trump, like if he knew he lost or not?
Yes.
So his knowledge is so central.
It is the most important part. Yeah.
It is the most important part. And so what people will say is, how do you read Trump's mind, right? I understand that the burdens for proving someone's intent and knowledge is always going to be circumstantial evidence. It's hard, and it's not often that you have a case where someone will say in an email, by the way, I know I lost the election and I'm just I'm doing this to defraud the United States.
Well, he did say that with the documents.
Trial.
No way.
I just wanted to say, that I was about to reference that. Sometimes you do get that, and there are some statements that are alleged in the indictments that show that he had an awareness that he lost the election based on the comments made to certain people. But if you just have the actions of like him being informed by his persons, people will tell me like, how can it be that so now you have some affirmative obligation to inform yourself? It's not like that. It's a totality of circumstances analysis on his conduct before the election, right? Where he's alleging fraud before there's even evidence of the fraud. The night of the election.
Can you clarify real quick? I'm sorry, real quick, because I'm not a lawyer. Can you clarify? Because I've heard people talk about how important or not important Trump knowing that what he was doing was wrong is relevant, because I've heard some legal scholars say it doesn't matter after he's been informed past a certain point. It doesn't matter if he sincerely believes that the election was stolen. He's not given a blank check to do whatever he wants.
That's crazy.
Can you tell like how important is like mens rea or motive or whatever? How important is that to criminal charges?
Gotcha.
Is
Anything
it like
else?
the hinge point?
The mens rea is critical. So in order for him to, a fraud is something that's knowing, right? To defraud someone, to do something, to induce someone to some material disadvantage or something in the, I guess, private party context, absolutely intentional knowing states of mind are critical. But the difference is here, right? If you pointed a gun at someone and you shot them, And then later on in trial, you're going to say, well, I really just thought that bullets don't kill people. I really thought that. I really like, and they're like, but haven't you seen movies? Yeah, but I just truly thought that bullets don't kill people. Or I just truly thought that it's not the case that anyone could die from me firing a gun at them. And you just kept on that line forever. None of you are going to allow willful, malicious blindness to be a way out of criminal charges. You never would. You never would allow it in any of those contexts that I'm bringing up, where, no matter how much evidence you're presented about the state of the world, that bullets do kill people. You're shown slides, you're shown documents, you're shown, someone kills someone in front of you, and you just still maintain that line. Nope, bullets just don't kill people.
But
are you going to let that? Wait. I just want to be clear on Sitch. In that example, would you let that person who's just continuing to claim that bullets don't kill anybody? Are you going to let them out of a conviction of knowing murder?
No, not unless there's evidence that they were like raised by weirdos that taught them bullets to kill people.
Yeah, well, in this particular case, he would have been told multiple times by experts that bullets do kill people and fired the gun anyway or attempted to.
But my understanding was that like willful ignorance or whatever that the phrase is like if someone says, here's a package, I want you to deliver it, and you think that there's something illegal in the package, but you intentionally choose not to look into it, right? Like even though like you think there could be, right? Isn't that the willful ignorance thing?
So one flavor of it is where you like it happens with there's like drug cases where you're pretty sure that there are drugs in your
crazy
trunk, and you knowingly not look so that you don't confirm it in your head. That's a flavor it takes. But like now, suppose that you open up the trunk and it's like, here are the drugs, Mr. President. The drugs are there. You see the drugs, and he just like looks at them. He's like, those are drugs. Those are drugs, sir. We've tested them. Here are the tests that show that they're drugs. Here, I'm smoking this drug in front of you. This is my crack pipe for the drugs that we're having. And then someone comes up and so
like this is a fair analogy.
Well, but just follow me on this analogy. Sorry. Go ahead, Destiny. Sorry. No, Stephen, go.
I was going to say this is like literally the level of, because if you read the indictment, it's literally saying that every single person told him there was no election fraud. There was no election fraud. There was no reason for Donald Trump to actually believe that there was an election fraud. And Donald Trump exhausted his legal recourse for election fraud. And I think all of us in here agree, as much as we hate it, he did have the right to ask Congress to certify their
100%.
vote. He did have the right to even make phone calls and ask about other things. Individual states arguably had the right to sue, but they didn't have standing for it, right? There were rights that were enacted that people went through, and they exhaustively went through their legal remedies to figure out if they felt like the election had been fraudulently done or not. But there's no reason for Trump to believe that. Nobody supported him.
So we actually covered the January 6th coverage of the attorney generals, or I think it was Trump's legal counsel, whoever it was in the White House, that were the lawyers that were basically testified into that they found no evidence of fraud. We covered Bill Barr saying this to Trump, that there was no evidence of fraud. Bill Barr also said he thought Trump was unmoored from reality, which may help
change that
the
position.
argument.
Bill Barr, the guy that the New Yorker wrote a profile piece on like 5 years ago, saying the sword and shield of Donald Trump. By the way,
no. Listen, I agree 100%. I know everyone, and he did. Now, unfortunately, he did have Sidney Powell, and Flynn, and Giuliani basically feeding him what he wanted to hear, but most of the people around him were saying that there was no evidence of fraud. I understand all that. We've talked about all this stuff. If I saw like compelling evidence to me that Donald Trump knew that he did not win the election and didn't care, then I would agree, then yes, charge him with all of these things. I just don't know if I've seen that specific piece of evidence.
You're letting him do like the drug example that I'm giving you.
That's
you're
crazy,
saying that person shouldn't be charged with.
Well, no. So when I read the indictment, it seemed like what they were saying was all these people told Trump that there was no election fraud. Therefore, he knew that there was an election fraud, as opposed to, well, he should have maybe known that there was an election fraud, or that he wasn't deluding himself. But especially when you have someone like Trump, I mean, if all the people they're going to believe are going to believe whatever the fuck they want, that's kind of like Donald Trump's MO.
No. So I disagree with the notion that Trump is like, I think people overstate the extent to his derangement in like clinical terms. Mm-hmm. I don't think that he's like, he doesn't take in like stimuli. He takes in stimuli. He is not like. Do you agree with that? Right? Like he's not just.
I don't know the answer to that question.
Come on.
I take in stimuli better than anybody. Believe me.
But like, so he's absolutely like aware of things. He's aware of things. He can see things.
He can perceive light. Yes,
and he can perceive the world.
And
right?
Air and
he's
oxygen.
Conscious.
He is a conscious entity. Yeah.
But like, so let's take this set of facts. Before the election, he is. I don't even need it. You know what I'm going to say before the election.
Wait. So if you said that there was something, I don't remember reading this indictment. You said that there was some comments he made that seemed to be that he understood he lost. Like if you showed
Yeah.
me, like really,
He
like,
told,
way.
he told Pence that you're
Wow.
too honest when Pence refused to delay the certification. He was told by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, about a potential foreign affairs issue, and Trump said, "Yeah, let's not do it. Let's just leave it for the other guy, Biden." You know, so he said things which indicated that he lost. There was an aide to the White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, who testified under oath during the January 6th committee that he told that he
Oh my
said
God.
in front of her that, yeah, I can't believe we got lost to this motherfucker or something like that in reference to President Biden.
So those statements do exist. I just want to say those statements do exist. But there are people. You can take your logic there, right? Or not your specific logic, but that logic that I'm criticizing, which is, well, just because he said it doesn't mean he believes it, right?
Or perhaps he believed it at the time and then started to believe something else.
well,
Beliefs
okay,
change.
we can say that's not my logic.
That's
You
crazy,
can-
Chad.
I'm not saying that's
Anything-
that's why I caveated. But if you take this ultimate maximalist view of, well, in order
Gotcha.
to prove knowledge, you
Anything
need a
else?
smoking gun. I don't know why you would be like satisfied with the, well, he said he lost, because he could say he lost, but it could be a play that he's working on. He could say he lost, but he
Yeah,
could
but
be saying
okay,
the
well,
opposite. of what he's thinking,
I don't think that's a
right?
fair characterization of someone who's an expert told him he lost versus, oh, he said it himself that he lost. We're trying to discern what's in his mind. I don't know how you can make this comparison.
point.
When by the way,
He
sorry,
literally
sidebar.
said-
When you guys are
He
done with
literally
this,
said,
I have a question for
can't
Adam and Sitch.
believe I lost
can't-
to this guy. I mean, he's literally saying.
All right, touche.
there you go.
Yeah.
On the loophole,
Oh.
Adam.
I don't know that it's a.
He's
I don't know
saying.
if it's a verbatim quote of what I'm saying. That was, I don't know.
That's a point in his favor.
I don't know that I represented that quote verbatim, but
I did. It is true. No, it's true. Yeah, he said, "I can't
Listen,
believe we
listen.
lost to this guy." Yeah.
Wow, you try to pull
Yeah.
it fast.
but are you?
Yeah.
The thing is, as with all knowledge and mental states, it's always totality of circumstances. Let me take you to election night. We all know the buildup. On election night itself, he says this is a fraud. He declares that there's fraud on election night before he has any possible
way.
way to know about
Wow.
the fraud or that he's alleging in these different various
Look,
places.
where are we
right?
going with all
So
this
just-
stuff?
wait,
Like,
wait,
none of
wait.
us support Trump. I was like,
Oh, no,
I'm
no,
going to ask a
it's
question to test that when
People,
you
like,
guys are done.
Trump
What would I need to show you? What would I need to show you to show that he clearly is just
wait.
completely
Unhinged.
dishonest?
Trump went out there and on the election night and said the election is fraudulent or whatever, he said.
Yeah.
And there were Trump voters that believed it before the results even came in.
Oh my God.
What was going on in their mind? Were they just lying to themselves?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he had spent months before the election, during the election, and in the aftermath, priming them to believe that in the first place. He did it in 2016 when
But
they
you're
asked, like,
assuming he didn't believe it himself. That's the issue.
No, because
Wait, he had
Okay,
access
so
to different information than a voter does. You're more likely to trust the president of the United States than a random dipshit on the street. Donald Trump should know better. We might not expect a random voter
That's
to know
crazy.
better.
Wait. I would agree with you. He should know better. But if the
How
legal
does he
requirement
know
is just
that-
he
Gotcha.
should know
Anything
better, then I
else?
would agree. Then you have him. But if it's not that he should know
how
better,
does he know that there's how does he know that there's fraud? How does he know that there's? First of all, we don't even know who's going to win on election night. We don't know who's winning. We don't know.
how do you know that he won in 2016?
Oh, he doesn't.
Well, no, but I just want to stay on this point.
Listen,
He
I don't
doesn't know.
Find, I don't find Trump listen. I don't
know
find
you
Trump a
don't.
trustworthy fucking person. I brought up all these points before when arguing with the pro-Trump people in our community, or when people come on to our show. That yes, he said the exact same. He said, "Oh, the election was fraudulent in 2016," and then he won. Suddenly, it wasn't.
I guess.
Okay.
Well, here's the question.
all
Is,
this.
the question is,
we're trying to prove in a court case. I think it's a little bit different.
No, yes, we agree. But here's the question then. Do you need him to say, "I knowingly lied," or is there any other way we can assess his mental state? And if there is, what would those
exactly.
what would those ways be?
destructive brain scan.
Okay.
Bro, come on. Don't mean.
No, he's memeing. He's memeing. But let Sitch answer. I'm curious.
I'm thinking. I don't. I'm trying to think of what I would consider powerful evidence that Trump knowingly was lying. That wasn't just him saying it to someone else. Because obviously, I would
No
accept
way.
that if he admitted that.
Wow.
But outside of that, I don't know. I'd have to.
Well, come on, wait. This is really important. There must.
No, I agree.
Wait, you understand that in almost every single court case ever, even when you're talking about first-degree murder, assessing mens rea is almost never the person stating they did it, right? First-degree murder cases don't hinge on a text message where the guy's like, "I'm going to go intentionally and knowingly murder this person." That's not how that works, right? We don't assess mental states that way.
Well, no. So
Oh my
okay,
God.
so if you view this in terms of a self-defense case, it all hinges on whether you think the person had a reasonable belief that they were defending their life, right?
Well, that's a standard that.
No, wait. That's a great question. Do you believe that Rittenhouse was defending his life?
Of course.
Why? He never stated that at any point in the altercation. I'm shooting this person to defend my life, right?
I would say that him running
That's
away
crazy,
from
chat.
the people would be a good indication of all what he was trying to do. He was trying to get away from all of them.
Okay, do you think that Donald
Gotcha.
Trump
Anything
asking
else?
every single person he could in his administration if there was voter fraud and then them saying no might be an indication that he did try to figure out if there was voter fraud, realized there wasn't, and then acted opposite to that anyway?
Yeah, of course that can be indication for. I'm not denying it isn't. I'm just saying I don't know for me,
overwhelming
criminal charges if it's enough.
Okay, now here's
on,
my
come on,
question. Okay, wait. I got to ask this. I'm just curious. You all said that, if I understand it correctly, that one of your political theses, one of like your goals is to try to like unite the right and the left and maybe like look at things from an empathetic perspective, do some healing and bridge building. I'm curious.
Ha 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 ha.
If Trump is indicted or convicted, do you support President Biden pardoning him? The fact that you're even hesitating is
I don't even know. I never even thought about that.
Okay, all right. Like, should he pull a Gerald Ford and pardon Nixon?
What is the correct answer that I'm just supposed to say immediately without even thinking about
Absolutely
it?
not. Not even close.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know the context of the situation. Like, has
No
Trump,
way.
like, lost the election?
Wow.
I don't know. Why do you say?
How do you not know the context? This is like the this is the most important thing to our democracy.
No. He's
Why do you
not
say so?
like whether Trump won or not.
Why do
But
you
that-
say so quickly that you shouldn't pardon him?
Because these are insanely serious crimes. He's running for president again, and it would just be one of the most unbelievably defiant things you could do in the face of the law for any citizen.
Hold on a second.
Holding.
I don't think Biden would pardon him without
my
some
God.
sort of concession, like you stop running for president, like you're never going to be
That
president.
can't be.
That's
That
not
can't-
legally
a president-
binding.
No,
No fucking way.
Even hold on. Ignoring legally binding politically and for the spirit of the United States, the idea that you would make conditional forgiveness of criminal charges, so if you just promise, please, you won't run for president, that would be an unbelievable condition, right?
Right. So the reason I'm
Admitting that
So wait, the reason I
That's
wasn't going to
crazy,
give you a
Jack.
blanket no, he shouldn't pardon us, because like you're asking me this hypothetical, and I'm like just thinking like I don't know what the outcome of that action would be.
Gotcha.
Obviously,
Anything
I would
else?
everyone here would say, well, if it had a better outcome down the road, that's what we'd be in favor of. You just don't think it will have a better outcome, and I don't know the answer to that question.
Well, no.
Because
You can
you're
also
letting
have a
the political
principled.
effect-
You can have a principled
Yeah,
position on the law, right? Because you got
That
remember
position-
earlier, Pisco asked
taking
me
a
this
pragmatic-
question earlier. Like, do you think whether or not it'd be good or bad politically should influence an indictment? And I think we all here agreed the answer should be no. So why are you now looking at the outcomes of like a pardon? I guess.
well, Sitch didn't even answer that question.
Wait,
Oh, okay, my bad.
Isn't a
Sitch,
pardon?
you never answered that question actually, and I'll ask it again now that I have the opportunity. Do you think that politics should affect our indictments?
I don't.
The decision to indict. Okay, so
I
if
don't
we
think-
knew, I'm going to reverse the question you asked to me. If we knew that Trump would win based on us indicting him now, would you still indict him based on the principles, assuming that you agreed with the indictments?
Yes, unless I knew that Trump winning would destroy America or something.
Okay, so then why is it so hard to answer this sort of
Because
pardon question?
Because it's the same thing. Like if Biden pardoning Trump would end, the hyper partisanship in this
No
country,
way.
even if Trump gets away with it, I
Wow.
would be in favor of it.
Oof.
I said a oof.
It's the fact that a man could be above the law. I think that what's happening, okay, I'm going to make mind reading accusations here, and I understand if you both hate me for it. I feel like in your guys' minds, I don't think you think that the January 6th shit or all of the illegal Trump actions were that big of a deal. I think you think it's like kind
all
of bad.
completely wrong, and I've explicitly
I understand
said
that you're
otherwise
saying
this
that, but
conversation.
it is impossible in my mind that you could
my
ever
God.
be in favor of forgiving Donald Trump, save for what Pisco said. Maybe if it was like somebody's about to nuke the world or rape 7,000 children or something, if we didn't pardon him, like absent any unbelievable circumstance like that, I can't imagine how you could pardon Donald Trump from these charges.
Well, so if say Trump loses, because we're all assuming that none of this is going to go to court till after the election, right?
That's
the
crazy,
assumption.
chat.
The verdict's probably
I
won't
think
come
one of the
out.
at least the appeals will not be done for years.
Okay,
There
well,
will be appeals.
let's
Anything
just say
else?
that hypothetically none of these even go to trial before the election. Trump loses the election. These go to trial. Trump loses and he goes to jail. Okay, and whoever is the president, if it's Biden or Gavin Newsom or Kamala Harris or whatever, they have the option to pardon him. If they If it's Kanye West, there you go. If they don't pardon him, then the right, for through sheer ignorance or stupidity or retardation, or however you want to characterize it, becomes more and more and more polarized. And in the next 5 to 10 years, it basically ends up destroying the country, tearing the country.
Civil war.
Okay, the Civil War, the Tim Pool Civil War actually happens. Or if Joe Biden or whomever does pardon Donald Trump, that starts to cool shit down and people chill the fuck out. To me, I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but I'm saying to me that would be the worthwhile thing, and I'd be
if you put Civil War
with getting the better outcome than punishing Donald Trump would be my position.
Let me give you what you want, Sitch. If I knew that doing this action would prevent a civil war and the deaths of thousands of Americans in this like brutal combat, if I had knowledge of that,
no way,
I'd take that deal. I would.
Wow.
Hey,
I would absolutely not. I would say at that point, I hate to do the leftist fear or whatever, the civil war needs to happen because you have people that are fundamentally incompatible with American democracy at that point, and at that point, the only solution is to boot them. Like that's
what happened
unfathomable.
to
It is unfathomable that you could let a man. No. It's not.
Really?
No. Democracy's dead at that point. You already elected a quasi-fascist, and now you're going to let him skirt rule of law that extremely. That is, you're saying, oh my God, because like I said before, you'll never own it. You don't think it was that big of a deal. You don't think anything Donald Trump did was that big of a deal. That's
you're putting it up against a civil war and the loss of millions of lives, Destiny.
You're talking about like Donald Trump, like assuming our institutions didn't like hold up as well as they did,
chat.
He would have destroyed democracy in the United States. Like, I don't know how else to say it.
Wait. Even if that's all true, okay, you're still saying that you think having a massive civil war versus peace would be better outcome just to make sure he goes to jail.
Okay, here, let me flip the question back on you.
That's why I don't
Let's say that it was the case.
like,
Let's flip the question back on you. Let's say that it was the case that if we pardon Donald Trump, there's no civil war, and then the next election cycle, Republicans elect an even more authoritarian leader, and he does manage to erode democracy in the United States, but there's no like huge civil war. Would you support that path?
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Why not?
That's one of the
because I want that's a bad outcome. That's a worse outcome.
So then you do believe that there is some blood worth shedding for the idea of democracy then?
Of course.
So my position isn't that far off yours then, right?
That's fine, but what I'm bothered is that you're trying to mind read us to say that because I guess we have a position that's not that far off. Okay, you're saying that we don't care about the January 6th
Donald
stuff.
Trump was an anti-democratic president that you want to allow the Republicans to have flirted with for 4 years and then to walk away from the consequences of that flirtation.
If it has a better outcome for this hypothetical,
part of the outcomes, the millions of lives that voted for a fascist leader. That's the consequence of it. If that is what it is, then that is what it is.
Us too, though. Destiny, us too, though.
Yeah, it's going to kill a lot of liberals too. A lot of men, women, and children.
I just want to say, I want to give Destiny what he wants. I want to give Sitch what he wants. I think a civil war would be justified if Trump were successful in any of what he was trying to do. Do you agree with that, Sitch and Adam? Yeah. So I think we agree on that.
I think if Donald Trump successfully overturned the election, that a physical civil war would have probably happened. Yes.
Yeah. No, and I
don't know. Wait.
Let me back up.
Even if he did, I'm not even sure. Like, if he did, and the Supreme Court, ruled on it and said yes, Donald Trump is president, and the military split in half and backed him, I think there would be massive civil war.
No, wouldn't you support civil war to depose Trump if he was successful in stealing the presidency from Joe Biden?
Yes, if Trump overthrew it through the means that he meant.
That's crazy.
The means that he tried to do it.
What he was trying to do.
Voter fraud and all this stuff. Yeah.
That's literally. So we were literally, arguably, a few decisions away. Let's say Pence decides, I think Donald Trump is right, and let's say that on that day, on January 6th, Pence says, I'm not going to certify the vote for these states. I'm going to change them. We're going to say Donald Trump is president again. At that moment in time, you would support a counter protest against the January 6th insurrectionists.
Can you repeat? I got lost in the
January 6th happens. January 6th happens. They manage to overthrow the vote because Pence agrees with Trump. Would you support other people going there to protest then, and then it turns violent, I guess, to take back, the Capitol building?
Sure.
Okay. I don't see how.
Republicans would have fallen in line. This is why when people will say, well, why weren't the left angry about BLM? Because more property was destroyed or more lives were lost. People don't realize, I think, how dangerous that action was for our democracy and the buildup. If if Pence had followed along from Trump, what do you think are the odds that the other Republicans fall in line?
They're probably pretty high. I don't disagree with that.
Yeah. So like, this is a close shave. I think it's a close shave.
And this was an unbelievable action from Pence. I even saw it on election night because Trump walked out and declared himself the victor before the votes were counted, and it was Pence that walked up to and was like, we're going to go ahead and wait and see what happens, right? Where he obviously put his stake in the sand where he wasn't going to support Trump there, but like, who knows if Pence would have supported Donald Trump in that measure? Who knows? That
well, and
Pence
let's
might
be
have been
very
the one
clear.
guy standing between U.S. democracy and oblivion. He might have been.
And let's be very clear to Destiny, to Steven's point there, Mike Pence struggled with that decision intensely. If you look at the reporting, if you look at, I think...
he called up Mr. Dan Quayle.
Yes. Yeah, Dan Quayle. He was on the phone with Mike Lee of Utah. He was like, listen, my default is this is a bad idea, but can someone please justify it for me so I can do this? Like, no, I'm paraphrasing him.
He doesn't waver on it now. He spoke on it recently.
Sure.
Saying that he doesn't have the right to do it.
That's crazy, chat.
But he doesn't pull back his support for Trump. He refuses to say that he won't support
Anything
Trump.
else?
So he doesn't say that he'll support Trump as a vote, but he refuses to do
Which
the
is
opposite.
bananas.
Bill Barr says the same thing, folks.
Bananas.
Bill Barr says the same thing.
Well, like we all agree here, Sitch and Adam, you all agree, I hope, and I think I heard from Sitch, I don't know if I heard from Adam, that a civil war would be justified to fight against Trump if he were successful. We all know he was trying to do that. Pence knows intimately he was trying to do that because he was pressuring Pence. And yet, all of these Republicans are willing to support this guy for something that you all consider would be Civil War worthy. How can you not see the situation where 80% of the Republican Party would support, probably more, would support Trump? He has a chance to win the White House, and for us not to be fucking concerned. We're very concerned, more than fucking people
when have I ever
in
said you can't be
CRT and
concerned?
shit in Florida.
I literally said that you have a
But like you're mad
to
about
be
the
concerned.
media's coverage. You're like mad like a New York, or not anymore, but like you're mad.
How
like
do you
you're-
wait? Please go. Wait! Stop! Please go. You're like Jekyll and Hyde here. You're so weird. You're like, oh, I'm so calm. I'm so understanding.
I'm sorry,
And then you get to one point and like the switch flips and you become bad faith. And it's like, what the hell? Like what is happening here? It's so bizarre.
Absolutely true.
Are these like your secret thoughts you're holding back the whole conversation? Or like, what the fuck happened?
He's got piscophrenia, okay?
Yeah, the fuck? Like you're like earlier in the conversation, you're like, it's totally fine if you guys want to do culture war stuff. Oh my god, you can't believe about CRT in Florida.
I can have my opinion on your culture war stuff too.
But then don't say it's fine for us to do it because you don't actually believe that.
Well, it's a good point.
Yes,
it's not fine. You have to focus on this.
Thank you, Pisco. Yes, exactly.
You have to focus on. Listen,
not right now. No.
In
triage.
Your emphasis, I think it's always fair to criticize people's emphases. If you love culture stuff, that's stuff you like to do.
I literally said, I don't know if this was before you came on. We literally lost a massive part of our audience when we covered the January 6th stuff, and coming out and saying that we thought Donald Trump was fucking wrong and that the election was not stolen and what he was doing was crazy.
So then how do you intend to win what's left of your right-wing audience that you say is still like 60% of it?
Because I don't say that all the people supporting him are all fascist. Because I think that they truly believe that the election was stolen, and that's why they're supporting him.
Well, right, but my question to you is, okay, so like you came out hard against Trump when you were covering the January 6th stuff. They withdrew their subscriptions or whatever. They're like, no, fuck this. He's too hard on Trump. Then you tell me, even to this day, your audience is approximately 60% right-wing, and part of your strategy, or at least your general approach, or both, I have no idea, but is to kind of massage them a little bit. Like, listen, we're kind of the cool left-leaning centrists in the sense that we're going to talk shit about the left.
You didn't say that, but
or whatever. I'm paraphrasing here. Like, I'm saying, like, I thought that part of your approach was that you were going to criticize the left, I assume in part to curry credibility with your audience, right? So then my question... Oh, you don't care.
They said this earlier.
Because they deserve it. They have it coming.
They said this earlier in Josiah. I don't think that you criticize Destiny when he does this, where he says it irks him more when it comes from his side.
Oh, we fought. No, Steven and I have fought about that. We've been on streams where I bitched about that before because I
probably turn those off.
You guys have faced it. I'm certain of it. Yeah. I see Destiny face it all the time.
From an emotional perspective.
Steven's a weasel.
That was actually the first argument that
Pisco.
Steven and I had on stream, where I challenged his focus. I'm like, listen, I've heard you say that, progressives and conservatives,
Oh my
or the
God.
right and the left, are equally anti-democratic. That was the first time he and I ever spoke to one another was about that. So
that
I
was such a cope take from Steven. He's like, oh, because you want
no,
to
I didn't. No, fuck. You're not gonna. We're not turning this on Steven, because I want to get some answers. Yeah, I want to get some answers out of Adam and Sitch. But like, no. I do have this disagreement with Steven from time to time. And listen, I'm not saying that I have the
crazy,
perfect formula.
chat.
I think there's some tension there that's going to be inevitable. But I thought that
Gotcha.
in addition
Anything
to
else?
criticizing the left genuinely, I'm not saying that you're faking it. But I assume, like, are you not activists? Is like the goal not to change minds, or is it just to reinforce your majority audience's low opinion of the left?
So, and I guess I can understand where your confusion is coming from here, because I think some people view, whenever you talk about anything political related, that the goal is to get people elected into office. That's never been my goal or Adam's goal.
Or even to change minds, just out of curiosity.
It's for us to change minds in terms of to like try to get people to understand the other side's position. I mean, if you're going to say like, how we're kind of doing this, I'd say the two things are to try to get people to understand the other side's position and to kind of critique and deconstruct the woke shit that I think is poisoning our society. Those
Fair
are kind
enough.
of
In a neutral way.
things for
In a neutral way, right?
in a completely not neutral way. No, in a completely not neutral way.
When it
Woke
comes
is
to
also,
then getting
we perceive of woke as being anti-liberal too. You should say that.
Yes,
so
I consider
people know what
woke
you're meaning.
anti-liberal.
I imagine Trump's pretty anti-liberal too. Just saying.
Well, yeah, but he would be
DeSantis, guys?
anti-liberal from the right. So
Yeah,
Who do you
but
support
when
president? You too.
I don't really support anyone right now. I don't even know if I'm going to vote, but
but DeSantis is very anti-woke.
I didn't.
I'm not going to support.
No way.
I told you I don't like what he did with
Wow.
Disney. That really rubbed me the wrong way.
Okay.
So.
Between Trump and Biden, would you vote for Biden?
I'm not sure.
Jesus.
I voted for Biden last time.
Jesus Christ.
I voted for Biden last time. I don't know if I'm going to vote for him again.
My goodness.
I will say.
Well, I don't think
you
you'd
know
vote
you're
for
not
Trump
black.
though, Sitch. I think you'd probably.
No,
abstain.
I would not vote for Trump. No.
Yeah.
Why would you
about
not
you,
vote for Biden? I'm going to ask why. Why?
It's too long to get into at this.
No way.
Oh my God.
I'm too tired.
You prick. Oh.
I'm going to punt on that one for next time.
What about you?
Voting
Adam?
for Andrew. I'm going to write in Andrew Yang. So.
Why?
Oh my god, that's so cringe.
Did you know that he actually is
Wow.
coming out with a GPS? Did you know that? He's not just
I don't know.
it's yeah, he is. He's coming out with the Yang PS. It's not
You-
left, not right, but forward, and you just keep going straight every fucking time.
That's
I
crazy,
can't.
chat.
I cannot stand this guy at all.
You don't like
Anyway.
Andrew Yang? Oh,
No, I
okay.
do not.
Wait,
How do you
Adam,
get Asian
are you
people?
serious
Glad I,
about the
look,
Reddit?
I'm glad I.
Anything
look,
else?
I'm glad I said. I was only memeing, but I'm actually glad I said it now. It triggered you.
It did trigger me.
I have to go, wait. I just want one more question before I leave for Adam and Sitch. Are you both going to consider voting for Joe Biden?
Of course.
Consider it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Much love to you all. Thanks for the chat. And hey, let's talk to Rob Norris soon about Devin Archer.
I'm not. No. Look- oh my
Yes,
God.
actually, yes.
No,
you need to bring the right and the left together.
We had
That's
like
how
a
you do it.
3
Not
or
Rob
4 hour
Moore, though.
conversation with
Yeah.
Rob.
You did a really
about-
good job on that, Sitch.
Thank you. About all the Barisma shit. And the entire conversation is going to be that again, plus the Devin shit, which is like a tiny. There's no reason to have the conversation.
Steven said he'd do it. I don't know if you. He said he would join you and he would debate Rob Noor with you about Devin Archer.
Okay, well then I'll do it for just the.
Wait, I said that?
Views and the
You
clicks.
did.
I'll do it
You did.
just
Steve,
for
did
that.
you hear that? He said, "Wait, I said that."
Yeah, there you go. That's what you're saying. That's bullshit.
My
All
bad.
right, much love, guys.
See you,
then.
peace.
All right, thank you. See ya. I am gonna end things on my side and
Okay,
kind
cool.
of give you guys a choice to keep going if you'd like.
Wait,
I
who?
do want to.
No, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
How about,
Do you want to
No,
debate Rob
nobody's
Moore
responding
Destiny?
to that shit, Steven.
on
We
No
just
way.
well, go back to your mom
Wow.
jokes.
Okay. How about I just go back to your mom?
that is a solid
Wow,
joke right there.
holy
I do want to. I want to specifically thank Pisco for coming in and Aaron for being our strongest woke soldier. It was wonderful
Anytime.
having you afterwards.
Yeah.
And then I'm
And this
not going to
was-
thank the rest of you again.
Look,
Go
this
ahead.
was a great
Wow.
conversation, and thank you, Cherry, for setting it up. So, I mean, this was a lot of fun.
Oh my God.
Yeah, all of you made this very stressful. I went back and forth with who would be on this panel because everyone's like, oh no, I'm going to agree with him. Oh no, we basically agree on everything. Oh no, we agree. All of you, even Josiah, thought that he agrees with both of you on all of this stuff. So it's
Yeah.
on the
really
tweet,
great
yeah.
panel.
On the tweet
Fence-sitter.
stuff, yeah.
You.
I know. you. No, I remember when she sent me that. I'm like,
That's
I don't
crazy,
know how
chat.
much we're going to disagree on this, but I think we end up spending like a collective 3 minutes and 20 seconds on the tweet in question anyway.
Gotcha.
So
Anything else?
Also, don't let him say fence sitter. He's the one who called conservative voters retard, and he was the one who thought that he definitely is eye to eye with Adam.
Well, listen, I don't say anything about the tweet that I disagree with. Okay?
I disagreed with the whole tweet that you guys put out. I thought we were going to talk more about
we
that.
would love to have both of you guys on. Straight
raid.
Yeah, sure. We'd love to have you on our show sometime if you're down.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Awesome. Well,
and same
thank you guys
with
for
you,
coming.
Josiah. So
Appreciate it, guys.
You're welcome as well. So
Yeah.
all right, take care, everyone.
Have fun.
Yes,
Bye.
yeah, bye, bro.
Ha, ha,
Thanks,
ha.
Jerry.
Later, everybody. Thanks for this conversation.
See you, Adam, Sitch, Steven, Aaron.
Bye.
Bye.
See you next time, bucko.